Good evening. I'm calling this meeting of the Sacramento City Unified School District Board of Education back to order. Item 4.1, the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be led this evening by Superintendent Aguilar.
Please stand. Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 4.2, our broadcast statement, which will be read by Board Member Ang Olson.
This meeting of the Sacramento City School Board is being recorded in its entirety and will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T Uverse. Today's meeting will air Sunday, January 19th at 6 o'clock p.m. and Monday, January 20th at noon, and also webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. We welcome members of the audience to address the board. Please complete a speaker form located in the back of the community room and give them to our communications representative with any handouts you may have for the board prior to the conclusion of the item's presentation. Please speak into the microphone when addressing the board and state your name for the record. Please limit comments during public comment to items that are not on the agenda. If you do comment on an item that is on the agenda, we will ask that you please defer your comments until your item comes up on the agenda. Please also turn off your cell phones or place them on silent or vibrate.
Thank you, Board Member Ang Olson. Item 4.3, our stellar student recognition. I see some wonderful students from Susan B. Anthony Elementary School. This evening, stellar student will be presented by Board Member Vane.
Thank you, President Ryan. Good evening, everyone. It is my honor tonight to actually first request our students and our principal from Susan B. Anthony to come up. Don't be shy, come up. So Susan B. Anthony has a it's very near and dear to my heart. As you all know, Susan B. Anthony is also runs the Hmong Immersion Program, one of the first Hmong Immersion program in the state of California. And today what I want to do is really acknowledge our student council at Susan B. Anthony. So the student council at Susan B. Anthony is a stellar group of students who've made a large impact on community at SBA. With just serving half a year term, they run the monthly character education recognition assemblies. They help run the PTO Fall Festival. They put on student fundraisers like dances. And they also help with the Susan B. Anthony Turkey Run by directing students, taking photos, and representing SBA and accepting an award of actually $1,000 from Burlington recently. They have inspired many students and their own colleagues on campus. And as longtime Susan B. Anthony, I think many of the students that you see up here are fourth to sixth graders. They have really inspired their own classmates. They also understand the struggles and the needs of their own peers and are great representation of the student body. Their leadership journey has just begun, but they have a bright future ahead of them. I also want to say when the student council started, usually there was only like 5 or 6 students who were interested in the student government. But now I hear that there's like 50 students that apply every term. And so what they actually do is they do their they put up pictures, they do a little speech like campaigning about why they should be elected as president or vice president. It's pretty awesome. And so I want to give a shout out to our current student members now, President Cassie Cha, Vice President Alan Lee, Secretary Faith Moore, our treasurer Kevin Tao, and our historian Sophia Weimer. So I just want to say congratulations to all of you and thank you for being a stellar student in this school district and being role models just to your peers. So congrats.
Yay.
I'm going to go down there and give y'all certificates, but I don't know if Ms. Baumol, you want to say anything, or our president, Ms. Cha, if you want to say anything.
No, come over to the microphone.
You got an organizer voice.
Be on the mic, come on.
What I would like to say is just I wouldn't be able to be student body and be able to host so many events and help other students without the rest of my team. And just as president doesn't mean that my role is bigger, but it means that I play 1 out of 5 roles. And each role, I think, plays a big, important role. So if there wasn't a treasurer, we wouldn't be organized. If there wasn't a secretary, we would forget our dates. If there wasn't a historian, we wouldn't remember our memories. And if we didn't have vice president, I wouldn't have a partner. So I want to say thank you to my friends and my friends over here too. And I'm very happy to be representing my school in honor of my fellow peers.
Beautiful.
Here's yours. And we're going to take a group photo really quick. And then Kevin. Hi. Hi, Kevin. This is yours. Okay. And then Faith. All right. Alan. And then President Cha. There you go. Awesome. Okay. Okay, high five, high five.
Congratulations again to our wonderful student leaders from Susan B. Anthony and to their amazing teachers and educators supporting them every day. Moving on to item 5.0, announcement of action taken in closed session.
Yes, Madam President. One action, reporting out of closed session by a unanimous vote of 7-0, a special education settlement matter identified as OEH case number 2019-100511 was approved. That concludes the announcements of the closed session, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Item 6.0, agenda adoption. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? Student preferential vote?
Aye.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Item 7.0, public comment. At this time, we have public comment on non-agendized items. Each speaker will be called up in order and have 2 minutes to speak with no more than 15 minutes on a single topic. Speakers can combine their time. Do we have any public comments?
Yes, we do. Board President Ryan, we have 13. Please come to the podium as your name is called. Maria Rodriguez, Brett Barley, Audrey Hemasath, RJ, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your last name. I'll go with RJ, and Adrienne Duarte.
Thank you.
Good evening, President Ryan, Superintendent Aguilar, members of the school board, and those with the tenacity to view these meetings online. My name is Maria Rodriguez, and I'm a parent of a graduate from SCUSD and a senior in the school district. Cutting out part of it because I have limited time. I am using my 2 minutes to express my appreciation for your work. And I'm not coming up here with rose-colored glasses, quite to the contrary. I took December off from coming to these meetings because I was starting to sense my growing cynicism that my voice was irrelevant again. But I pulled myself out of that hole and I watched the meetings that I missed, including listening to Cecile Nunley tell you all that there are hard times ahead. And that was not an understatement, and she has called this out before. There are hard times ahead, so I am not here with rose-colored glasses. But I do want to commend you for some things. I really appreciate that you're working together despite the diversity that I know are in your opinions. I know you all have your own agendas, but you're working together and we see a unified front. I want to thank you for agreeing to make the budget discussions priority and transparent. I am an accounting person. I dream numbers. I love budgets. And I guarantee you, you have a person somewhere in your administration, in your workforce, that is worth his or her weight in gold. Someone who has the history and knows this school district, knows the answers, and you need to tap them. And finally, I want to thank you for persisting to make student flourishing and equity a reality. That is not going to be an easy road ahead. I could give you a whole nother 5 minutes on why I know that's not going to be a easy road ahead, but you all know it. You all know it, especially you, Superintendent. And if there's anything I can do to support equity in this school district, I will continue to do it long after my kids graduate, because I've never been here for my own kids. They don't need me. Other kids need me. And I will keep doing this, and despite my cynicism that does pop up.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. Brett Barley, Superintendent, California Montessori Project. Happy New Year, happy 2020. This is going to be shorter than the normal Montessori Minute, maybe only 30 seconds. The 30th of January, we are having our Parent Appreciation Day and Art Walk. It is at 8:15 and runs till 9:30. If you're looking for a cup of coffee and some carbohydrates, please pop by our school, check out some of our students' artwork, and join us for the Art Walk. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Audrey Hema. I am the parent of 3 SAC Unified students, 1 at Sutter Middle and 2 at McClatchy High School, both in the HISP program. And that's what's brought me here this evening. I've been a SAC Unified parent since 2008. This is the first time I've really engaged at all, because this is the first time I've ever been worried. I have been nothing but happy with the education my children have gotten in their years up until now, and I'm happy with every day of education they've gotten up until now. The HISP program at McClatchy is excellent. It has been excellent since we moved to the district, and I hope that it continues to be excellent. And I'm worried tonight for the first time. I saw the communication come from Ellen Wong at HISP indicating her concerns, and to me, that is a canary in the coal mine. So I understand that HISP will eventually continue without her, but I want it to continue as an excellent program, not just the name HISP to continue, but to have it be the same HISP that brought us to McClatchy and has me wanting to enroll my 3rd child in McClatchy. And what that means, I don't know. I don't have enough information. I'm just a parent at the school. I don't have a handle on the tensions between the administration at McClatchy and the teachers in McClatchy, but I know that they're there. I listen to the students. I know many of the students who are here tonight, and I hope they use this time while I'm speaking to get up and grab one more comment card and join the line, because it's their school, it's their education, and I would put the McClatchy HISP education up against the best schools in the country, public, private, and I want it to stay that way. I know the district has a lot of problems, but please give HISP the resources it needs to succeed. It is important to everyone in the district that we have a gold standard program in addition to programs that help other students. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We're combining our time this evening. Hi, everyone. My name is RJ Tchaikovsky. I'm a senior in HISP at McClatchy High School, where I've been a member of student government for 3 years. Like many of my classmates in the audience tonight, I owe my sense of dedication and academic perseverance to hardworking teachers and staff at McClatchy. So when they feel that they can no longer work within the toxic environment established by our school's administration, students like us have their backs. My experience as a Lion has pushed my ability to turn a blind eye towards irresponsible leadership to the absolute limit. With the developments of this past week, I have no benefit of the doubt left to give. Neither do you. The voice of your constituents could not be more clear. 86% of McClatchy teachers voted that they had no confidence in Principal Lambert. Respected staff are putting their careers on the line for this cause. Trustee Moravsky, I appreciate the email you sent out this morning insisting that there are no plans to close HISP, but our teachers have assured us that no one is willing to serve as coordinator if Ms. Wong steps down. By failing to address the root problem behind this issue, you will be effectively shutting down the program at the end of the year. Don't we deserve not to wake up to humiliating news stories about our school in the nationwide press? Don't we deserve to organize bake sales for our classes without fear that those funds will be reappropriated by school leadership? As a proud product of this district, I plead you to honor your responsibilities to your students. Conditions at McClatchy, including everything from negligent hiring to perpetual teacher vacancies, are unacceptable by any measure. I plead that you invoke a sense of common decency. The actions of leadership at McClatchy are not just unprofessional, they're downright immoral. The most important skill I've learned in high school is critical thinking. With that in mind, I don't understand how the district can hope to inspire future leaders while at the same time uplifting self-serving figureheads at their largest school site. I'm not here out of bitterness for my school. I'm here because I love it. And every day I see glimpses of what it could be with proper administration. I hope and expect that you make the necessary staff and policy modifications to realize those visions. Thank you.
For our next group, we have Adrian Duarte, Kate Tilley, Gabby Arguello, Terry Hardy, Dennis Love, and Deanne McAllen.
Hello, everyone. I'm a junior at McClatchy. I'm in the HIS program. I'm the student journalist who wrote the article about the misappropriation of funds, and I've come here today to talk about it. I'll start by saying that the abuse of power comes with no surprise. The district has failed its students, and the culture of impunity that continuously exempts McClatchy's administration must come to an end. DT Martin and Principal Lambert failed in their legal responsibility to safeguard student-raised funds. Not one, but two California education codes were violated. Their actions are not just ethically bankrupt, but fraudulent and illegal. We have no faith that the district will hold them accountable. It's clear in their district statements that they will investigate just to satisfy our protests. We will not let this be swept under the rug. We are calling for a full-fledged criminal investigation into the actions of DT Martin and Principal Lambert. We'd like to formally complain and ask that these accounts be audited in full by the Sacramento City Unified School District. That means a full investigation into how thousands of dollars can just disappear and reappear. Given that the district fails to audit these accounts and remove the people in power, we're in the process of contacting the State Department of Education for them to audit all McClatchy accounts and proceed with a criminal investigation into those involved. This will undoubtedly reveal what we know to be the corrupt actions of McClatchy leadership. And if having the principal at the biggest school in the district brought up on criminal charges is not enough to make you scared, then we will coordinate district-wide student walkouts and protests to force the hand of Sac Unified. I can't imagine what a school district that's already $20 million in debt will do when your students don't show up to class, you can't get your attendance checks from the feds. Some of the most respected teachers around will raise hell in this city until not just the school district is in a state of collapse, but the reputations of every single person on this board.
Okay, hi, I'm Gabby Arguello. In regards to what Kate just said, to explaining his conduct, DT is the ASB advisor. He said that the FICMAT, which is what he referred to, is a, quote, suggestion when it comes to his conduct handling money, but he is using the FICMAT, he's holding me accountable to the FICMAT when it comes to me running for president of the school, which I have wanted to run since I was in 7th grade. I would like to read to you an email that my father sent to one of these board members, a very helpful board member. I just want to let you guys all know what is happening. So he says that Mr. Martin stated that the FICMAT ASB manual is adopted in the official policy of the entire SCUSD. He sends a link. He stated that every school does and must strictly uniformly follow all policies, no exceptions. And he has stated that you are the ultimate decision maker and enforcer. Any deviation in any policy would result in sanctions from the district. That said, I asked when these policies were adopted and if ever revised, and there is no cover page showing that timeline of adoption as well as states or of any revisions. A cover page as such is standard for organizations, especially for articles of governance. As it stands as is, the truth is that the FICMAC manual is a template. On page 2, even an adoption of these policies in the manual would suggest that any conflicts between local culture and this manual template will defer to the local entity policies and practices. I suggested to Mr. Martin and Lambert that they consider beginning the strict adherence to this policy with the freshman class year. So this policy that he's talking about is that you have to be an ASB for an entire year before you can even run for president. The past years, the current president and vice president, it follows for the vice president, do not meet these qualifications. Current sophomores, juniors, and seniors have been used to different ASB cultures and norms. For right or wrong, under the tenure of Mr. Huppard, I still have an email exchange with Mr. Huppard from years ago when my son started at CCAM, in which he said students, quote, did not have to attend zero period in order to participate in ASB, whereas Mr. Huppard may not have followed official policies as well as the larger CCAM administration, equally not following policies.
Thank you. Will you be combining your time with another student?
Yes, Adrian. Okay, cool. Sorry.
We're going to go ahead and reset the clock for 2 more minutes.
Thank you. Have to attend zero period in order to participate ASB. Sorry.
CCAM administration equally not following policies. That is not at the students' fault. It should not be that the students are the ones bearing the burden for lack of oversight and compliance, as well as being the primary people held accountable for what the teachers and administration did or did not do. I can imagine that a number of students would have made different choices about attending zero-hour ASB had they known the official policy. Related to the prior point, this policy for president and vice president positions does expose the exclusionary and disenfranchising nature of how ASB is run at CCAM. Mandating attendance of 0 hour is inequitable. Some students cannot make it to 0 hour because of transportation or other family issues. Other students have to attend mandated 0 hours for courses like HISP and VEPA. Other students' families may have not allowed students to attend 0 hour under Hubbard's tenure, which we all know that his conduct was not appropriate. Mr. Lambert stated that the president and vice president positions are the most important, and that is imperative that the successful candidates have shown participation in ASB during a prior year in order to know how ASB is run. He could not explain why this wouldn't be the case for the secretary or treasurer. Also, it is pointed out that during spring semester, newly elected candidates are mentored by the existing officers, so it seems that participation in ASB during the year of election is what is most important, which is what I would qualify for. The fact is that while declaring strict adherence now to these policies, Mr. Martin already has not followed these policies in ASB this year and in the election process. The current president and VP do not meet these qualifications, yet have been allowed to maintain their positions. Also, Mr. Martin has allowed 2 candidates to campaign in ways contrary to the policies without sanctioning or disqualifying them. Historically, the election process has been conducted by paper ballots, which included a write-in option, as is a staple with free and fair democratic election processes. In light of this situation and being asked about a write-in option, Mr. Martin has said that there will be no write-in options for me.
We can take your comments too if you wouldn't mind leaving them with Elliot.
Okay,
Thank you very
so
much. Appreciate it.
I think I'm next. I'm Terry Hardy. I am a parent. My daughter Eleanor is home studying, but she wanted very much to come. I am so sad to be here, and I just want you to know how much plus the comments of the prior parent about what an incredible education that my child is getting at this school, and how much I value Ellen Wong and the leadership that she provides to that school. I hope that all of you have been to McClatchy and visited those classrooms and seen what a treasure she is for our community. I reached out to her in an email when I saw, her resignation, and she said it had become an untenable situation and she could no longer do her job. And like I said, it's breaking my heart. And it's making these kids very fretful, and, it's the last thing that we need to be going through right now, and I'm sure the district feels the same way. So, do you value this school? Do you value Ellen Wong? Do you value what you're seeing here in the audience tonight? I really would like to hear from each and every one of you what it means to you and why you could let a situation get to the extent that it's devolved to, and what immediate steps you are planning to take to turn this around. Because we cannot lose this program, and we cannot lose this educator, and we cannot lose one student who is going there. So I beg you to take action and to please communicate with us what you plan on doing. Thank you so much.
Okay, for our last group, can we please have Mindy Herrera, Cecile Nunley, Rich Vasquez, Trudy Moore, Chris Walker, and DT Martin.
Hi, I'm Deanne McAllen. I emailed this earlier, so if I run out of time, you guys have it, I'll leave a copy, and I've shortened it a little bit. I agree with Ellen Wong and the HIS Council. Where I started paying attention, November 2017, Sac City averts a teacher strike. To what end? February 2018, what I call a rogue science fair. The CKM HISP student, though not a HISP class. At that time, I attended a town hall at CKM because of the backlash against the HISP Science Fair project. I witnessed our superintendent's alliance with the Science Fair project. That night, I saw that Sac City was heading down a path that led to undo a part of our district that was working well, that being the high school open enrollment specialty programs. There's more than ones and O's, more than data points. Things such as knowledge of the district, an intimate knowledge of the current collaboration, listening, absorbing, data gathering, data of the human nature, not ones and O's, and I'm a data person. I'm going to skip some. Other issues, filling vacancies, long-term substitutes, and unqualified teaching. Many at a late October 2019 forum seemed to think these were new issues. Not new. Ask some of the kids that are in Spanish 3 this year who basically did not have Spanish 2 last year. This is not a new problem. We need to get it fixed. For HISP specifically, Ellen Wong has built a program that has lifted the entirety of CKM and has very likely inspired West Campus, PACE, LEAD, IB, and VEPA, just to name a few. We are shutting down a program that has been a leader in this district. So that's part of it, and kudos to the students who have stood up and spoken tonight. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mindy Herrera, and I want to commend all the students that have come tonight and said something. I come to you tonight as a concerned parent of a current student at McClatchy and an incoming freshman student for next year. My concerns are simple and revolve around the lack of confidence within the current school administration. McClatchy has had many problems and challenges, just like the prior speaker had mentioned. Just this week, there was an article revealing the misappropriation of student-raised funds by none other than Principal Lambert. Then yesterday, I was made aware of the resignation of the HISP director due to the lack of confidence within the school leadership. My question to all of you is, when will you step in and do something about these problems? When will enough be enough? Because quite frankly, I've had enough. I'm so fed up that if we were to vote tomorrow on Measure H, my vote would be no. And I say this to you because it's upsetting to me, and it pains me to say that I would vote no, especially because I've seen firsthand the peril that our schools are in. But I lack the confidence that this money will be used in an appropriate manner and dispersed as in the best interest of our children and of our schools. And because of that, I feel like you've left me no choice, that if you will not take the action, then I must. Thank you.
Good evening, board members and superintendent. I wanted to let you know the community is still waiting to receive responsive records to our California Public Records Act requests. We've been waiting 5.5 months for answers. In October, your policy and government manager, Mr. Nathaniel Browning, refused to answer basic questions about the McClatchy High School track closure in August, as if what happened was something top secret that he needed to hide from the public, and he instead demanded that we make written CPRA requests when the law does not require written requests. He denied receiving our first request, which we hand-delivered to him in October. When he didn't respond, we were forced to make additional requests. We received no 10-day letter as required by law for any of our requests. 30 days later, Mr. Browning wrote that he was denying our requests because in his mind, they were irrelevant, which is an unlawful reason to withhold records. Mr. Browning next blamed email server problems that didn't occur until long after a response was required by law. He then denied having responsive records such as an organizational chart, duty statements, job classification specifications, and contact information for his superiors. Mr. Browning also withheld text messages erroneously believing they aren't public records. As a result, the community believes he may be unlawfully withholding other records as well. In October, Mr. Browning stated to the community in writing that some unnamed person on some unnamed date called me to invite me to a meeting. Knowing that no one called me, we asked for telephone records showing who called me and when. We were told that no telephone records exist, proving that Mr. Browning was not truthful with the community. The community is concerned that the school district, by its own conduct, is teaching our students that obeying the law is not important, transparency in government is not important, being truthful is not important, and some people, district staff, are above the law. We hope you will take steps to ensure your staff comply with the law and be worthy of their positions in public service. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, board members and superintendent. My name is Chris Walker, and I'm here to talk about the McClatchy HISP issue. We've supported public education from day one. I'm a product of public education. My wife is a product of public education, and we insisted that we put our daughters through the public education system. We went to HISP and McClatchy not because of a HISP program, Humanities International Studies program. That can be replicated anywhere. You cannot replicate the people. We chose to send our kids to McClatchy because of the people, not because of a four-letter program. Mrs. Wong is at the core of that. She is the guiding light of that. One of the very few successes across this district. When she speaks on something like this, I would hope you would listen. And I hope you're listening to the parents and the students tonight. Other choices exist. If this HISP program loses the people that make it, but it continues on in name, that's not good enough. It's not good enough for me, it's not good enough for our family. And we're looking at other choices for next year. Our daughter has graduated from HISP, our second daughter is a freshman. Do I want to be there for 3 more years of this? You guys need to make a decision, you need to act. We want some leadership. We want change. That toxic environment has to go. Mr. Lambert has been a problem. He is not creating the environment that we want to see in a public school. We want you to change. Thank you.
Cecile, wait, we'll reset the clock.
Okay, thank you. Well, good evening, board members, superintendent, board president Ryan. It's good to see everyone here, and Happy New Year. I know it's been a little while. I just wanted to come back and reiterate, because it's always so important. This is an election year, and you can feel it. You can already feel it with people talking about Measure H or this or that or any other problems. And it's just so critical still. And I want to say thank you for the leadership, because you guys sticking together is the best thing that this district could have. You staying behind and supporting your superintendent is the best thing. Even in the state controller's audit, it said the whole continuity of leadership is so important. So I do just want to say thank you to all of you, because it is difficult, and at times you do hear maybe some of the emotional things of the moment, but really it's so important and so critical that you stay the course and stay with what you really need to do and what's best for all kids. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, President Ryan, Superintendent Aguilar, and members of the board. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you, and pick it back off what Cecile's saying. Like you said, I've seen a lot of improvement in the last 4 or 5 years, and it has had an impact on my kids and my life and my morale, my mentality. So, like I said, there's a lot more work to do, but a good job to this point. And so I do have some negative things that it's been on my mind. The teacher vacancy. It took my child 51 days to get a teacher in Spanish, and then 70 days to get a teacher in math. At Hiram Johnson, they implemented the A through G requirements, but does that really even matter if we don't have the qualified teachers in the classrooms? So, and like I said, my background is we didn't go to college. We need this, we need this. I need qualified teachers. I need them ahead of time. My math was my child's favorite subject. I don't hear her saying nothing good about it no more. So, this stuff matters. So I hope next year I don't have to say the same thing. So please get ahead of that, especially for Hiram Johnson. Like we need help. That's one of the things. Like I said, the Stark report said we had 5 vacancies. It's up to you guys to fix it. We need help there with that, please. I want to talk about the bond measure. You guys need to get some information out. Like I said, they're saying they're not going to vote for it. Why? When will our school get any type of funding to renovate our facilities? We're not. The $750 million, where is that going to come from? Nowhere. So, like I said, the improvements at Johnson, the field, the repaving, we haven't got the offices open yet, but that's coming too. That builds my morale. That builds the kids' morale. Go talk to the kids. Go see what they think about coming on campus when it looks good. They feel good. They play better. All our sports are doing better because of that stuff. So like I said, these people talking about they ain't going to vote for it. Well, their school sites must have everything. We don't got nothing over there. We're finally getting stuff. We need more. And also the budgets. I'm on the school site council, and you guys haven't had the budgets. We canceled 2 meetings already. Where parents don't have unlimited times and hours, I'm all over the place. I put in 7 to 8 hours at the site yesterday, 5 this day. I'm over here at the board meeting, and I got to go to work at night. Like, please hold accountable to whatever you're going to.
Thank you, Mr. Vasquez. I appreciate it.
Good evening, members of the board, audience. I am Darrell T Martin, DT Martin. I am probably at the center of some of this madness here that I hear regarding the missing funds from McClatchy High School and the ASB account. And what I will say, without going into great detail, is that at no time were there funds missing. At no time were the funds misappropriated or done any different than in the last 5 years that I know of prior researching. The manner in which the account is handled. In 35 years in prior employment, I've handled over millions of dollars in money, some in cash, some in accounts, grants, and never once has anyone ever accused me of missing a dime because my integrity, my ethics would not allow me. I am a man of honor, and I faithfully believe that I will not participate with anyone whom I believe or know is involved in misappropriating funds, any stealing, embezzlement, any of that. The manner in which I handled the ASB situation, I handled it based on this book right here. This was written and approved by the Sacramento City Unified School District Board. This is the manual. Now, if some folks don't understand or haven't taken the time to read it, I took over ASB for 3 weeks as a temporary position because the teacher that was there left the classroom. At that point, I had to find the manual, dig through it, and try to make some understanding of it. So did I make any mistakes? Not when it came to that amount of money. I'm not going to.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Will you be combining your time with anyone else? Or
Yes.
Is it just, okay.
There's 3 over there.
No, if
I'll
to
wait.
combine your time, you have to have someone else with you.
They have cards over there.
Oh, they do have cards? Okay.
You want it? Yes, we do have an Olivia Germain. We did receive some additional
Okay,
cards.
so I just need to make sure that we're being consistent with the time that we're allocating for everyone.
There are 3.
Okay,
So-
there's, do you want to tell me who they are? I have Olivia Germain, Victoria Ramirez, Eric Espinosa, and Victorio.
Victorio.
Okay, yep, those are the 3? Okay.
Okay.
So I believe in what I'm doing, and the manner in which I'm doing it is based on district policy. This is not a policy that I make up along the way. All too often, when I impose these policies on the staff and the students within McClatchy High School, the response is, it's not the McClatchy way. And my response is, what is the McClatchy way? Where is it written down? See, because I believe in policy and procedures, because that's the only way you can operate. I know the law because I'm 35 years in law enforcement. I know what a theft and embezzlement. I've investigated all of these. I have sent people to prison for life. I've sent 2 people to the death row. I've done this my whole career. So to accuse me of taking or misappropriating of $233 of some change over some overtime that was worked in 2017, approved in 2017, and paid to me as owed because I was not a teacher at the time in 2017. And then in 2019, 2 years later, tell me that I shouldn't have approved it. Well, in 2017, I did not approve it. And what this all boils down to, and everyone they listed in this paper, there were several people, monitors, whose overtime was challenged. But everyone mentioned by name were Black. Everyone who they had a problem with were Black. The events all happened at the same time, the 2017 graduation. So, ironically, anyone that has stood up to the folks at McClatchy High School, the HIS program, has always received pushback. I am not here for the paycheck. I agree with the teachers, they don't make any money. I am here for the students. I have always been here for the students, and I'll continue to be here for the students. You can't force me, push me, call me names, write articles about me that are untrue, and expect me to cowardly and run away. I am not that person. I will never be that person. I don't know how. The only thing you told me is to dig in. It's going to be a long ride, and I'm here for the long haul because I have locked up students for the rest of their lives. I have locked up their parents for the rest of their lives. So I know what happens if we don't give them a good education. I know what happens when we don't support them right now, right here. And that's all I've done. I have several positions at McClatchy High School. I am the ASB teacher, and a lot of them are my students in ASB. I also teach the Law and Public Policy program. I also teach at the Sacramento County Office of Education. I also work for the Sacramento Police Department still. I also work for the Sacramento State Fair Police. Not because I want to, not because I have to. I could drop the keys today, folks, but my students need me. They appreciate me. And I have promised them this day one. I will never, ever take advantage of you. I will never take any money from you. I will never do anything to make you think that I've done something unethical, immoral, or illegal. Do I think that there's other reasons behind all this? Yes, I do. Anyone that supports Mr. Lambert tends to be targeted. Do I support Mr. Lambert in all his decisions? Not at all. And I tell him so. But when it comes to the school, the students, and the education of especially minority students, because I see so often that we don't have a lot of minority students out here. I see too many times what happens to our minority students. We want the best for our non-minority students and give them everything, and let's send the others to discipline. That's where I started at McClatchy, in discipline. And the only thing I saw was a revolving door of all the minority students coming through the discipline office. Suspensions, suspend them, expel them. That's a problem. That's why I became a teacher. And by the way, both my parents were teachers, 35 plus years. Both my grandparents on both sides were teachers. So do I support the teachers? Wholeheartedly, 100%. But do I support the madness that goes on at McClatchy? And the last thing I'm gonna say is that the last time I heard somebody say either me or you, and that was a hostage situation we had. So we're gonna hold his program hostage. So now the district has to decide, are they gonna pay the ransom? Because that's what it is, one or the other. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments at this time?
Board President Ryan, we have two more, one from Wendy Bogdan and one from Grace Trujillo.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Wendy Bogdan. I have a 10th grader in the HIS program at McClatchy, and I have a 5th grader in Sac City Unified School District who I hope to have proceed through Sac City Unified School District schools, including McClatchy. Have no idea if he'll ever end up in the HIS program. I'm here like many of the folks are because of the call out, the shout out from Ellen. When I looked at what the issues were that were expressed, one of the things that struck me was that many of them were really not limited to HISP. They really pointed to issues that were really related to the larger school culture and to management. And I've been here before and noted that I think many of the problems that are facing the district are ones that many different stakeholders share in, and I appreciate the fact that you all are here to hear my words, and that some of those other stakeholders aren't available to me to speak with. But I think Ellen's notes called out the fact that there may very well be some unforced errors by the school district. I was at the meeting in the fall. I think you guys actually acknowledged that the vacancy problems at McClatchy were, to some extent, an unforced error. And it seems like there may be some others in play as well, recognizing that there are probably also a lot of complexities. I'd really encourage you, and I know it's hard, but to organize swiftly around this, to try and develop a plan to respond and get messaging out on that plan, because things are spinning out and I really want my kids to have the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy.
Good evening, members of the board and Superintendent, Mr. Arligad. I think it's been a while since I've spoken, and it's kind of nice to see so many familiar faces at these board meetings. I usually see them in schools and campuses. You know, I think over the years, I think it's been 15 years, and I keep on coming, even though I have all kinds of stuff going on. But I appreciate, you know, lately when a person asked me, Grace, why haven't you been coming? I said, you know what I've been doing? I've been praying. I've been praying for the souls of purgatory, for the people at one point that held these positions of power to come back to the people that are currently alive and to touch their hearts, because that's what it needs to happen, unfortunately. I've been kind of analyzing the whole system, and I look at it like, why hasn't education made a difference? Why isn't children placed first among everything? Why is legislation rotated around the professionals and not the kids? Because that's why we have so many problems in our education system, even though education should be the priority. So the 3 candles that I light every day, by the way, I go because St. Mary's is so close, is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And I wish today that it touches the people that need to be touched. No mentioning names. God knows, and they know too, that have the power to make changes for these kids, and one time for it to be a united and to be the focus of our attention. I think you all heard of all the things that are going on right now, and I think I give it a time for it to continue. So
Thank
with that,
you.
I give it.
Thank you, Ms. Trujillo. We have no further public comments at this time. Thank you to everyone who came to make their voices heard tonight. We're moving on to item 8.0, communications. Item 8.1, employee organizational reports. First, employee organizational report, SCTA. SCTA will be given up to 15 minutes per Article 18.1.12. This evening's topics will be PERB, restorative practices, multi-tiered systems of support, fiscal transparency, accountability, and decision-making.
Good evening. My name is David Fisher, President of Sacramento City Teachers Association. Happy New Year. The last school board meeting, December 19th, I stood here with Dan Chalik of SEIU Local 1021, and together we strongly encourage you to take an opportunity, in light of a much improved budget situation, to change course and work with us to implement the contract and improve student services. Unfortunately, the very next day, December 20th, Superintendent Aguilar demonstrated his intention, with your support evidently, to continue the Sac City campaign against its own educators. On December 20th, he filed a request with PERB to declare negotiations for a successor contract to be at impasse, while the district is still refusing to implement the key provisions of the last contract. In nearly 20 years I've been active in the union, I've never seen PERB act so quickly to dismiss the district's request on the very same day it was filed. This week, on January 30th, the district repeated the maneuver, using the same exact date of December 19th to try to declare impasse again, with what we expect to be the exact same outcome. How many thousands of dollars did the district waste on outside legal counsel in filing its frivolous action? We're also still waiting for the district to provide us the costs for the lawsuit it filed against its own teachers, to try to backtrack out of an agreed upon salary schedule, and the subsequent costs for the arbitration. By our estimation, the cost may exceed more than $250,000, taxpayer dollars that should have been spent on students. When it comes to taxpayer dollars, especially when the district is asking voters to approve a multi-million-dollar bond, the district needs to be above reproach. Often overlooked in the auditor's report is her finding that the district acted, and I quote, in violation of state law, and that you, the Sacramento City Unified School District, failed to uphold its fiduciary duties. That brings me to this McClatchy situation. In addition to what you've already heard with the elegant comments from parents and students, the situation in McClatchy warrants your immediate intervention to ensure that there is true fiscal accountability and transparency, and that you as school board uphold your duty to protect taxpayer dollars. As you know, staff at McClatchy raised concerns about missing money directly with the superintendent way back in May of 2018. We asked Mr. Aguilar to hire a forensic audit at that time to ensure that all money was accounted for and that the proper protocols were in place. Mr. Aguilar refused to conduct such a forensic audit, which we raised in our letter to State Superintendent Tony Thurman. But Mr. Aguilar assured us that he had taken steps to put proper protocols in place. Now, the recent article in the student newspaper, The Prospector, and repeated in the Sacramento Bee suggests otherwise. Again, the staff raised concerns about more missing money directly with certain center administrators back in September of 2019. And no one responded to the concerns that were raised directly with the superintendent and board president Ryan. This happened well before the articles were published. To date, not one person from the district has responded. Not the superintendent, not the school board president, not the director of human resources, not the district's new chief business officer, not the district's legal counsel, nobody. We believe that it's the Sac City School Board's duty to ensure that dollars are spent appropriately and wisely. That's why we again strongly urge you to immediately assign an outside forensic auditor to investigate the situation in McClatchy, and if the money has been inappropriately diverted, hold those responsible accountable. We believe it's in everyone's best interest that the elected members of the Sacramento City School Board lead the way on transparency and accountability. Toward that end, we want to comment briefly on the proposal to extend the superintendent's contract. Without commenting on Mr. Aguilar's performance, we believe that the proposal, which would automatically extend a superintendent's contract in any year that the superintendent gets a positive evaluation, is bad policy. Making a decision now to extend a contract that still has an additional 18 months to go severely curtails this board's ability, or any future board's ability in that matter, to hold the superintendent accountable. And finally, earlier this week, the California Public Employee Relations Board issued another complaint against Sac City. By our count, it's the 5th complaint that has been issued against the district in the last 12 months. PERB's latest complaint found that, among other things, in March 2019, the district removed early childhood programs from the bargaining unit by laying off child development educators and replacing staff with Sacramento Employment and Training Agency employees. In other words, the district outsourced its work. The district failed and refused to meet and negotiate in good faith with SCTA in violation of Government Code 354.3C. The district also interfered with the rights of bargaining unit employees to be represented by SCTA in violation of Government Code 3543A. The district engaged in unlawful activity by putting an SCTA activist on involuntary administrative leave, initiated an investigation into his workplace conduct, and reassigned his work location after the activist voiced to his superiors his opposition to the layoff plan. The matter will now be scheduled for an informal mediation meeting between Sac City and the district, and if the matter can't be resolved, PERB will conduct a formal hearing before an administrative law judge. It's unfortunate that for at least 18 months, you as the school board have chosen to lead a concerted public relations campaign against your own teachers, including completely unnecessary layoffs that resulted in hundreds of unnecessary vacancies, and culminating in your most recent demand that teachers take a significant wage cut rather than working together to put the needs of students first. This strategy has fomented conflict and adversity. All that being said, we sincerely hope that things will be different in 2020. If not, we're prepared, just in case, but we are hopeful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Do we have a presentation from SEIU this evening? TCS? Teamsters? UPE? Item 8.2. Oh, I'm sorry, we have one board member comment. Board Member Pritchett.
Thank you, President Ryan. I have 2 requests for the superintendent. First request, I would like to ask that we get a formal dollar amount of the cost for the public records requests that are engaged by SCTA. And then also, Superintendent, can you please remind me and our community the purpose of filing for impasse?
Sure, absolutely, Member Pritchett. Thank you for the question. When we made the decision to file for impasse, it's actually part of the negotiations process to seek support and help from that particular entity to engage in good faith bargaining. So we see it as a process that we sought, given the fact that we believe that we need to start the process of negotiations. It's what the state auditor also recommended, and it is the vehicle that we think has to be used in order for us to address the crisis that we're under.
Thank you.
And Board Member Pritchett, I just want to make sure I clarify your request. You're asking for a dollar amount for Public Records Act. Are you asking for a legal, the cost of legal fees associated with Public Records Act requests from the bargaining entity, the one bargaining entity? Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 8.2, District Parent Advisory Committees. Community Advisory Committee.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm Kenya Martinez. This is the secretary for the Community Advisory Committee.
I'm sorry, can we turn Kenya's mic up a little bit? I'm having a hard time hearing
I need
you.
to speak into the mic.
Okay.
I'm Kenya Martinez. I'm the chair for the Community Advisory Committee. What I wanted to report out is our next meeting on Tuesday is How to Read an IEP meeting. We invite all the members of the board to attend. Also, during our last executive committee meeting, which happened on January 5th, the executive committee decided to actually ask you a request. This is a public request and this is our formal request. We would like one member of the board to be assigned to the CAC, meaning we would like for one of you to volunteer to be our liaison. So that is our formal request, and it's actually a public request. We will be sending you an email to just make it formal. And so I'm just going to end it at that. Sarah Williams Kingsley is going to talk about data that we actually have asked for repeatedly, and she's just going to go into detail about that.
Thank you, Kenya.
Hi, Sarah Williams Kingsley, Secretary for the CAC. So I just wanted to bring to your attention that part of the CAC's role is to give input and assist the district in delivering special education services to our students. And as part of that role, we asked for data about who that population is, where they are, what their needs are, et cetera. And we formally asked for that data in November. And I know that our special education staff is overwhelmed. They're down several staffers. I'm not even sure what the status of that is today, but they don't have enough people to cover all of their bases. So that means that that data request has been outstanding for, we're now at 2 full months.
Okay.
And we've asked for it before and it hasn't really come. And I know that Special Education Director Becky Bryant is working on it and has staff. I know Chief Academic Officer Beta assigned some staff, and that's still in progress. But I wanted to let you know that those are things that prevent us from being able to really participate in that process.
Sarah, would you mind sending us the data request?
Sure.
Okay,
I
thank
can
you.
send that to you. No problem. Thank you. I think that's, yeah, we invite you to our meeting and would love if other members of the public wanted to come. It's certainly an interesting topic, and you'll hear from Judy Elliott later, and she's going to also be at our meeting. So if people have
Wonderful.
questions for her, they can come to our meeting.
Thank
We'll
you
have a nice
so
little
much.
chat.
Thank you. I forgot to mention that Judy Elliott will be speaking at our, Judy Elliott will be speaking at our meeting on Tuesday. So we invite all members of the public to attend.
Thank you, Kenya. Perfect timing. Oh, we have 2 board member comments or questions. First, Member Morowski, followed by Member Pritchett.
Not a question, just a statement that if we were to formally have a board member liaison, I would be honored to do that. So I am, I know, to me, I didn't come in.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I look forward to working with you, continuing to work with you.
Thank you.
I didn't come into this role with special ed as my focus. It's something that I've learned more about throughout this year, but I really do think that reforming our system so we are serving all students is at the core of how we can move this district forward. So I look forward to continuing the work with you, and thank you for your service too.
Thank you. You will be receiving our agenda by email. Okay.
Board Member Pritchett.
Well, Member Morowski beat me to the punch.
We can be alternates.
But I would be happy to serve as a backup. But can you remind us the meeting on how to read an IEP? Can you tell us what time that meeting is and where it's
That
located?
meeting will be held between 6 and 8 p.m. Like I also stated,
On
Judy.
what day?
It's Tuesday, this upcoming Tuesday. The 21st?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
And as
so-
one of the requests of the CAC, we have been doing robocalls to inform parents throughout the district of the CAC meetings and topics, which has been a really good way to ensure people know that they're happening.
Just to add, we would like robocalls to go out to the entire district. We've asked that of our SPED department. I'm not relating that our SPED department doesn't work hard, but we would like to see actually all the district be told about the events happening with the
Yeah.
CAC.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
District English Learner Advisory Committee. Local Control Accountability Plan Parent Advisory Committee.
Good evening. My name's Frank DeYoung, and I'm on the LCAP committee. Good evening, President Ryan, Superintendent Aguilar, and other board members. I'm here to give you an update on the LCAP. We haven't met since last December, but I just wanted to let you know what we've been working on. We've been meeting with department heads to go over their plans, looking at the dashboard and talking about their plans for meeting the needs, as we can see from the dashboard. We're currently looking at past priorities and recommendations and trying to synthesize them so that we can use them and see where they fit in for this year. And we're also starting to look at the family survey and what we can do with that to update that. Our future goals are to continue to meet with departments and go over their information with the information that we have. We're going to continue to work on the survey and also start to put our priorities together so that we can get them to you earlier this year so that you will have them as part of your decision-making of the LCAP instead of we're kind of coming after it's already ready to go. And so that's kind of where we are. I would like to take an opportunity to thank the superintendent for coming to our last meeting and spending some time with us and sharing his vision and where he sees the district and where he would like to go. I think it was really important for the committee to hear that, and I know we really appreciated his time. And so that's the report.
Thank you so much, Mr. DeYoung. Board Member Minnick.
Real quick, Frank, can you just remind us which Monday it is that you guys meet?
Yeah, we usually meet on the last Monday of the month. We will be meeting on the 27th at 6 o'clock in the Washington room. It's open to the public. Anybody that would like to come is more than welcome. Board members are always welcome. And it's usually the last Monday of the month unless there's holidays or things, but we try to have them then.
Cool. Well, I was teaching last semester on Monday nights, so I'm glad that this semester I can come by and see how you guys are doing.
Appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Mr. DeYoung. Moving on to item 8.3, the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much, President Ryan. I'm going to be very brief because I'm hoping that all of you will stay for our board presentation, providing an update on the work that we're doing around special ed. But first and foremost, Happy New Year to everyone. It's great to see some familiar faces, some young faces as well. We have some of our students here, and I know that we had many more students. I want to just take you back a couple of weeks and make sure that everybody joins me in thanking many of our staff members, custodians, nutrition staff, who made sure that we were able to provide free meals to our students during winter break so that none of our students would go hungry. And I've obviously have seen firsthand some of the challenges that we face in our community, so I'm grateful and hope that all of you will join me when you see many of our custodians, nutrition staff who spent many hours making sure that we provided free meals to our students here throughout the city and our district. I also want to invite folks as we get ready to celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. Certainly there are a lot of activities. I know where I'm hoping to spend my Monday participating in helping improve our community, but do hope that his philosophy and legacy continues to guide the decision-making of this board and me as your superintendent. In particular, and other board members may speak to this, through the generosity of some community members, we will be screening the documentary of Linda Ronstadt at CK McClatchy this Saturday. And we hope that many of our community members will attend that screening. There actually will be an opportunity to, I want to say, write essays or something so that there will be an opportunity for students to win scholarships. And lastly, I do want to remind, as we think about the importance of continuing to counter the phenomenon that many of our urban school districts throughout the state are going through of declining enrollment, that if you have any friends and family that have students that are of kindergarten or early kindergarten age, that registration will be starting or has started, and the deadline is January 28th to register students for their neighborhood school. And we hope that those individuals will be visiting our enrollment center here on our facility. Again, thank you for being here. I really hope that most of you will stay for the next board presentation, providing an update to our community about the great work that's happening, challenging work, as Member Morowski said, around special ed.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Aguilar. Item 8.4, the President's Report. I am going to expand upon two opportunities that we have in the coming days. I will tell you, 3 years ago, I had the opportunity to take my daughter to the Women's March in D.C. It was less than a few months after my mother's passing from cancer. It was a very difficult portion of my life, and we made the determination that despite the national unrest and what we knew would happen in D.C., that my daughter, 6 years old at that time, would make the trek with me in honor of my mother and her lifetime of service. We have participated in every Women's March since then. This year, I am very proud, with the generous support of a sponsor, to co-host with Board Member Morowski at McClatchy, as Superintendent Aguilar shared, a free screening of the wonderful documentary about the life and legacy of Linda Rodstadt in my voice. It really is a powerful experience watching a Latina woman break barriers and become the first female rock star. It is a free experience for women, girls, and those who identify as female, and anyone else who wants to be a part of a women's empowerment conversation. We hope that you'll join us that day at 11 a.m. Saturday. On Monday, I will also be able to participate in our Martin Luther King Day of Service. This will actually be the first year in 5 years that I haven't marched. The only thing that can keep me from marching is the fact that our high poverty school, incredibly deserving, Father Keith B. Kenny, has been adopted by Kaiser and will undergo an incredible transformation that day, including 2 mural paintings, plantings, and a variety of beautification projects. For those of you who haven't been at Father Keith B. Kenny, that school is the reason we are going after Measure H bond funds. It is inequity in every sense of the word if you look at the stark and deplorable conditions at that campus. They have done their best to be able to offer a good and really welcoming environment for their students, and yet the conditions of the facilities are very, very, I would say, subpar. So we are going to have an opportunity to, working with our Kaiser partners, beautify the school site. I would invite community members to join us. It will be 8 a.m. to noon that day. And Martin Luther King was not just about marching, but action. So the legacy of service and joining in Day of Service projects is a wonderful way to honor his legacy. And I want to just finally say, David Fisher from SCTA said that we have an opportunity to begin 2020 on a different note. One of my favorite quotes comes from Martin Luther King, which is, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that." And when we finally come to a place where we lead with kindness, compassion, and a belief that we are all centered in one goal, which is trying to ensure all students achieve, irrespective of their race or zip code, that is when we will finally see the equity vision that we have for Sac City Unified realized. Item 8.5, Student Board Member Report. Student Board Member Eng Olson.
Thank you, President Ryan. I want to start my report today by giving a couple of updates. So this past Tuesday, I organized a student forum at West Campus High School, and I'm happy to have had Board Member Minnick in attendance. So with a packed library of students, we took note of student concerns, and these included a lack of accessible student rights information and the short and ineffective current sex ed program. And I look forward to following up on these issues and many more with the Student Advisory Council and the district staff. In the Student Advisory Council, we have organized 2 initiatives planned for the year: the evaluation of sex ed in schools and the establishment of care closets to provide clothing for students in need in our district schools.
Wonderful.
So with those updates out of the way, I'd like to use my remaining time to address a matter concerning and threatening my home school at McClatchy. I'm a student representative, and I feel that it's my responsibility to speak on how I and my fellow students feel. I've seen the utter lack of administrative accountability and proper leadership culminating over the past 3.5 years I've been at McClatchy, and I echo wholeheartedly what my fellow students said tonight. We need substantial reform of McClatchy leadership leadership, and administration. And the sheer number of McClatchy students who attended this board meeting tonight should be an indication, if any, that McClatchy is at a critical time right now, and the decision this district makes in regards to our school's leadership will determine the trajectory of McClatchy from here. Student achievement is at stake. Education is at stake. The dysfunctionality at the head of our school pervades all programs and all students. This is not a HISP issue, this is a McClatchy issue. The recent publishings on the dishonesty among McClatchy's leaders confirm what so many students have already known for so long. The distrust and lack of confidence in the leaders of our school is irreparable and requires substantial reform. The idea that our current situation is the result of a singular incident or that our school will heal on its own is false. The relationship between students and teachers and our school's leadership is irremediable. The bridges are burned, and maintaining the current state of affairs is a recipe for degradation. Do not expect this to simply blow over. This is not a recent one-time issue, so let's not treat it like one. I guarantee you that the words of these students and the hundreds of emails sent by families and students are not delivered with the intention of maintaining the ineffective status quo. Let's prove to our students and constituents that we are listening on this board. Thank you.
Thank you, Student Board Member Olson. Item 8.6, information sharing by board members. Do we have any board member comments at this time? Board Member Minnick.
Thank you. A couple things. One, in response to your announcement, President Ryan, about Kaiser doing the beautification day at Keith Bikini, they've also adopted Fern Bacon. And so that's where I'll be. And I know a year or two ago, Member Vang and I were out there, I think doing more harm than good, but I like to think that we helped fix the place up. And so that's going on. So they have adopted multiple schools, and I'm really excited that they've chosen these two schools. There may be others that I don't know about. I also wanted to do a special thanks to Member Ang Olson. The event at West Campus this week was pretty amazing. There had to have been at least 100 students in there. There was standing room only. There was a long line to get in. We had to start late because we had to filter everybody in. But between Olivia and the ASB students at West organizing that, it was pretty impressive. And like you said, the issues that they brought up, I thought were important as reminders for us, because we weren't talking about student achievement. We weren't talking about specific curriculum. We were talking about things like emotional support, mental health. There was a lot of talk about reproductive rights, reproductive health, and sex ed, and really looking beyond kind of the biology kind of stuff, and having more legitimate kind of information that students need, health. And then we talked a lot about the need for availability of professional development for staff and teachers around things like restorative justice, restorative practices, gender identification, and use of proper pronouns, the kind of things that they don't always teach you in graduate school. But as the world adjusts and changes, we have to make sure that all our staff are up to speed, because it's unfortunate. We heard stories where students were inadvertently felt ostracized or disrespected, not intentionally by staff or teachers, but just because they haven't gotten the support, the teachers and staff haven't gotten the support they needed to be able to be knowledgeable about stuff. And so it was really great insight, I thought, from the students at West Campus. I was really proud of them. I was really proud to represent that school. And so thank you for making that happen. I'm excited to hear what happens at the rest of your forums.
Thank you, Board Member Minnick. We have one more comment by Board Member Morowski.
Thanks very much. Just quickly, I wanted to take an opportunity to thank everyone who came out from McClatchy tonight. I have had, I think I counted 75 emails from folks just yesterday. So I just wanted to say to everyone who has gotten in touch, I will be in touch with you. It's taking me a little time to make it through the volume of communication, but I want you to know that I hear you. I hear your frustration and dissatisfaction, and I look forward to partnering with you as my community to move the school forward. I'm totally committed to making sure all students at McClatchy have access to a world-class education, and I appreciate your partnership in that. I did want to mention one more thing, and that is molecular biology. I am really, really pleased. It was, admittedly, a little messy getting there, and with a lot of different discussions with different folks. But the bottom line is, we did get a decision to continue the molecular biology course at McClatchy and Kennedy. And it is a very popular course. I've spoken in depth to Libby Coleman, who developed the course, and it's a very impressive course, a very engaging course. We had huge support from students about this course, and it was amazing to see their advocacy and their engagement. And it wasn't just a question of maintaining the status quo, but also maintaining this really wonderful course and looking at who really meets the academic profile for people who could really succeed in a rigorous course like this, and making sure that we pre-register students who may not have known about the course, so that they don't need to ask for the course. So it is, it's an ongoing conversation as to how we ensure equity and move, lift up all students. But I think it was a really, really positive development, and I really want to thank the superintendent and staff for really engaging with, particularly with the McClatchy community, who really spoke up about this issue. So I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Morawski. Item 9.0, Board Workshop Strategic Plan and Initiatives. Item 9.1, Special Education Update, which will be delivered this evening by Christine Beta, Judy Elliott, and Becky Bryant.
Good evening. As we do so well in Sac City Unified, a collaborative team is on their way up to start to share with you the work that we're doing for our students. I am honored to be joined by Becky Bryant, our Director of Special Education and Director of our SELPA, and Judy Elliott. Good evening, Board. President Ryan, Superintendent, and members of our Board. We're excited to share with you this evening some of the work that we're doing, and hopefully what you'll hear tonight is a story of clarity and new focus as we work to ensure that we are moving the dial, not for just our students who are receiving special education services, because we are serving students first, and all of our students who are in need of special education services are students first. And you're going to hear from us tonight about some of the work that we are currently engaging in. I'd like to start by moving through our, if it'll move, and maybe it will, and maybe it won't. There we go. There it is. I'd like you to take a really good look first at this quote that we always share, but tonight I want to read it out loud because it's coming back to the work that we're about to hear. Every system is perfectly designed to get the results that it gets. You know that we've shared with you previously our SBAC results for our students who have disabilities, and I know that you remember that we have about 14% of our students with disabilities meeting or exceeding standard in ELA. Pausing so that we can own and understand the impact of that on our system. And 10.9% of our students with disabilities meeting or exceeding standard in math. completely unacceptable. Our system is completely designed to get the very results that we are getting. Here's our core value. We are making a consistent promise that we are going to disrupt and interrupt these inequities that you just heard, that you've seen, that we know that we have in place. And again, tonight, I hope that you hear our focus, our new focus on ensuring that we are able to disrupt these inequities and our guiding principle. So for our students, ensuring that they have the most post-secondary choices from the widest array of options. Let's take a look at the history. Where have we been? So that we can best understand where we are going. As you know, we had in 2016-17 a Council of Great City Schools report. Judy continues to teach me, Dr. Judy Elliott, that this is not an audit. It is a report, and she reminds me of that repeatedly. There were 10 broad recommendations, and under all of those recommendations, if you've seen the report, you see multiple layers of recommendation underneath that. Our district moved into working to try to address those broad recommendations and so much underneath. We know us, and we know that we do not have the capacity to go that broad and that deep. So you'll keep hearing me tonight try to talk about pulling away the clouds, getting us focused on what we really do need to do so that we're changing outcomes for students. Progress toward these broad recommendations has been very slow. There have been some finite moves made, but not nearly enough to do anything to the outcomes that we would expect to see for our children. Our implementation needs over time with this helped us to know that we need some additional support, and that moved us to engage with support with SCOE, as well as the California Collaborative for Educational Excellence. And I'd like to start right now by introducing you to somebody that you know that comes and supports us very often. But I'd like Mr. Dave Gordon, the Superintendent of County Schools, to come up and share with you our work with SCOE as we continue to move through this with continued focus.
Thank you very much, and good evening, board members. Happy New Year to you all. We've been involved, as you know, in the fiscal oversight, and we're very pleased that CCEE has joined in, especially around the special education effort. I want to make very clear that this is going to be a long process to set up a system which is treating each family and each child in a way that you or I would want to be treated, and making the best accommodation and service plan for young people. I learned in my work in Elk Grove that from the very first day we welcomed a new family, the first impression was generally what people cued off of in understanding where we stood vis-a-vis their needs and their hopes for their young people. So this is very much about kids, it's about people, it's about families who depend so much on the support of a school district. So what that means is, let me assure you that there are no quick fixes. And if anybody comes around telling you, buy this or hire this group of people and you'll save money or things will be great, that's not the way it works. It has to be done very thoughtfully, and it's about your people, our people, interacting with families and with young people and framing a program and support that people have great confidence in and that delivers great results. So I have great confidence in your staff. CCEE, Judy Elliott, is a great consultant, much experience in this area, and we will stand behind all of that work and do the best we can, but this will take time. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Gordon.
Thank you, Superintendent Gordon. And I'm also honored to introduce you this evening to the Executive Director of CCEE, Mr. Tom Armelino. And he'd like to share a little bit about our work and our partnership.
Good evening. I'm Tom Armelino. It's a pleasure to meet you, Madam Board Chair and Superintendent Aguilar and the members of the board too. So the CCE, I'm not sure how much you know about CCE. So the California Collaborative for Educational Excellence was created in 2015, and it really was aligned with LCFF. So when LCFF was developed, part of the goal was we were starting to develop our new accountability system at that time, hadn't been developed, right, with the new Smarter Balanced Assessments. So the CCE was created in particular to be a state agency that would be available to be a support to school districts and LEAs. So, and in particular around the system of support, county offices have this very large responsibility to work with districts. And part of our job is to collaborate with them and then work with them when they determine that there are some needs that where we can support them. We're very small. We're still, we don't have a large budget. We have staff of around 15 folks, but we have probably over 100 consultants that we work with. So where we're fortunate is that we can often get the expertise of folks like Judy Elliott, where we can look specifically where is a need, right? We can't solve all the needs. Part of our job is to not really solve. It's really to be able to add support, help, maybe some expertise specific to really help kind of guide where it is you need to go next. So we were contacted by the superintendent as well as Dr. Dave Gordon from the County Office of Education last fall. We started to have conversations in particular around this particular issue around special education. So we met together as a group, kind of agreed on where it is that we might be able to provide support. We brought Judy to the table. I think Judy's going to speak to you more specifically about the kind of support that we have been able to provide. And as far as how long we'll be here as long as you continue to need us, right? So part of it is we're just a partner in this work, and we really want to be able to support the needs of the students that you're really trying to address. So pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. So you can see we are well suited to be able to move this work for our kids. I'd like to talk to you about our current reality. So we know what the Council of Great City Schools put forward for us with these broad recommendations, and I want to share what we know to still be our truth as we continue to look to not being in a position where we're looking at so much, but really moving into a focus. And to be perfectly transparent and honest with what we have to do and what we have to see, because we cannot fix the problems unless we really see them. We need a culture of shared responsibility for all of our students. We can talk about students receiving special education services, but you will hear me continually say, as the mother of 2 children who were students who received special education supports, that our children are children first. And we need to improve our culture of responsibility for all of our students. We need to a better use of our data systems. We have incredible data systems in Sacramento City Unified School District. And as we look to the next 2 days that we have Judy Elliott support with CCEE coming in January, one of the things that we'll be unraveling and examining is our data. We have so many beautiful systems, but are we using our systems? Do our leaders and our teachers know how to get what they need so that they can answer the questions that they have so that they can continue to work to move the dial for our kids? We're also looking at our ongoing monitoring and accountability for our students with disabilities beyond the special education department. Their services often are very small in what they're receiving in special education that is directly impacting time outside of their general education classroom. We need to make sure that our leaders and our teachers are able to serve needs right there in our general education classrooms throughout the entire day. And we're also looking at the disproportionality in regards to identifying and serving our students who have special needs. This one I think is really important, and I think we all could agree that we need to reset the discipline expectations throughout our district. We'll talk a little bit about what that needs to start to look like, but we need an all-over reset. And so what I hope that you keep hearing is clarity with focus, and that we are serving all students, because what we see as our needs in special education are not special education needs. These are our system needs. We have a lack of coherence in our expectations for formal suspension and proper documentation and discipline incidents and intervention. When you start to think about all these, and we commit to our board that we'll continue to offer additional information so that we can all be coming with the same language and the same expectations around what is MTSS. But as you start to hear all this, and the Council of Great City Schools called this out many years ago, we need to implement a multi-tiered system of supports for our kids. We need coordination of supports to glue together the work that we're doing for our children, for all of our children. So let's just take one quick moment, because I don't want to just spend our evening in a learning session on MTSS, but as a district and as a board, we need to start anchoring and learning what is MTSS, because what I typically hear is people think that it is tiers. And that is not what MTSS is at all. So this for you offers an opportunity to see that we are talking about multiple tiers of support. The very first and most important tier that serves everybody is Tier 1, and that's the work that we need to do to improve our instruction, as well as all the work that we're doing around social emotional learning and behavior for all of our students. And that is going to support a lot of the work that we do for all of our kids. And then we move into deeper and deeper tiers of supports as we need. But you see that that's just one small part of what we need for our MTSS work. The MTSS framework also involves a problem-solving process that we're going to completely align to the work that we're doing with our improvement science work, that our principals and vice principals, I saw an amazing meeting today that our two of our IASs, Mary and Chad, led, that is bringing all of our assistant principals up to speed with improvement science too. We're going to align our problem-solving process to some of that work. We need to, as I already shared, improve our data use and data evaluation with our fabulous systems that we have. We need to improve our communication and collaboration, and you see how all of that fits right into what we need to be doing with MTSS, building our capacity and our infrastructure, and look at what is so important, anchoring all of it together, is leadership. So you're going to hear about some of the work that we've already started around leadership. So I wanted to talk to you about that a high tide floats all boats. Because when we talk about special education, we are not just talking about students who are receiving special education services. These are students first, and we need to be rising the tide for 43,000 students. It doesn't matter if you're a second grader who's struggling to read, or a sophomore who's struggling to get your credit so that we can ensure that you're going to graduate. We need to be able to ensure that we're rising the tide for every one of our kids. And so we're going to start talking about standards, aligned instruction for all students that's driven by data for improved academic and behavioral outcomes. All of this links together. You can't separate any part of it. And that's why we'll keep coming back to looking at all the components of MTSS and the importance. So I'd like to share with you some of the current and planned work that we have in place to address. And before I start to share, I want to say two things that I think are important as a board to understand. And thank you to Dave Gordon for pointing this out. We can't do this too fast. We need to start as a system building and developing what we can sustain that will outlast every one of us that's here right now, so that we are building something for our students that is going to change outcomes. The point is not to implement MTSS. The point is to have a common framework, common language, and common understanding that will change outcomes and the lives of our children. So we can't move too fast, but the really difficult piece is we need to move fast, because for that second grader who's struggling to read, they do not get today back They don't get tomorrow back, the week back, a month back, or a year back. And for that sophomore who needs their credits, they're not getting anything back either. So I'd like you to listen for not just what we're doing in the long term, but thankfully Superintendent has already brought into our system multiple ways that we are already starting to have an impact. It needs to get glued together with this coordination that we're bringing, but there are things that are happening now. So it will take us time, but there are things that are happening now. So for example, our principals are increasing their data-driven decision-making through the work that we're doing with our SIPSA, LCAP, and budget integration. We're moving on that. We're putting together, if you remember, that PELP root cause 2, where we called out that we needed to better coordinate our supports between central office and our sites. That's all embedded in there. And we know that as we build better SIPSAs, we build better opportunities for our kids. That is in place. And I wanted to just thank you again and again, coming into this system from another nearby district and finding out that we had no common way to find how our children were learning or to monitor their progress. So thank you for implementing our common assessments, because without that, it would really be hard to stand here as your new CAO and say that we can move forward on really looking at academically how we're impacting what's happening for kids. So thank you for those common assessments. Those are in place, and we're hearing really great stories from out on the field around not just the challenges, because once you have a common assessment, you know that saying from Maya Angelou, once you know better, you have to do better, right? And so now we're hearing that teachers see what kids know and what they don't know, and they're wanting to find out. And now what strategies, what interventions can I start to learn to put in place so that I can do something about these metrics? We need to keep that work going. We're going to keep talking about integrating MTSS from the work teams. We've had multiple work teams in our district, some of them working for more than a year, to pull together pieces of MTSS. We've taken all of that work team work, and Dr. Judy Elliott and I and the teams that we've been working with, we've been reviewing the work that's already been in place. We're going to work to build a common understanding and common language so that we're coherently all talking from a focused place about what we are doing together for kids. We're going to use these brilliant data systems that we have and ensure that we have alignment and that we can help our principals to put this together with the improvement science work that they're already doing, and ensure that that comes to our true practitioners, the artisans, our teachers, and that they can have the data that they need and the resources that they need to put interventions in place to make changes for children, because we know that that's why they do what they do. We're going to continue to work, and you know that you've seen the call out on this, that we are going to eliminate earlier than we needed to our willful defiance suspensions for kindergarten through 8th graders, and I think that couldn't be any better news for our system. That puts our kids in school. We know there's work around that in professional learning and training for our principals, our teachers. Our IAS team is ready and poised to make sure that this happens for our group. Our suspensions and manifestation determination IEP requirements and behavior supports for our students that have disabilities, as well as students who do not but need the services of a refined behavior policy. We have some of that work already in place, and I'd like to just do a shout out to Mr. Chad Schweitzer, who's been taking a lead on some of this before any stay order was put in place. We had work ready to go. And important to know that there's high-level professional learning happening for our instructional superintendents, our principals. Tomorrow we have a full day with training with a gentleman from CORE, all on improvement science, so that we can calibrate our learning and improve what's happening out on campuses. You heard from April Shafto from Tahoe a couple months ago, and she shared with you the change idea work around math. And I want you to remember that, because remember, we can't do this too fast. But I know that those kids are not coming back to school for this day that they just lost. So you need to know that we are doing things right now as we're building our capacity to move forward with some deeper work. We're going to make sure that our students are no longer sent home for discipline. And I wanted to share just a data point with you because you might be wondering about this. So you see sent home up there in quotes. In our system, if a student is having behavior difficulties and we want to avoid a suspension data point, we can send that student home right now and it comes up under sent home. And we're not doing that anymore. And I wanted you as a board to see what our sent home data looked like for 18-19 and to share with you that through January 15th, what our data looks like for sent home right now. And you can see that we are on a track to be very close to the data where we were. This needs to stop. We've got a plan in place and we're ready to make sure that this is going to go away. We are going to be accurately documenting if we are sending students home on a suspension and removing that day of learning from children. We're going to make sure that that is accurately documented. I'd like to now have you meet for a moment our wonderful Dr. Judy Elliott. She won't share this, and she doesn't like me to share, that her expertise includes that she's the former CAO in LA Unified. She's worked in Long Beach. She's working across the United States. And she doesn't like the word expert, but is an expert at implementing and sustaining MTSS in large urban districts. And she's been not just helping our work, but really as a brand new CAO, to have the mentoring of somebody like Dr. Judy Elliott has been really valuable. So thank you, Superintendent Aguilar, for making sure that she was available for our children.
Thank you, Ms. Elliott. We so appreciate you being here tonight.
Thanks for having me, Madam President, board members, and superintendent and community. Thanks for the opportunity to meet you all and be here. It's a pleasure to work with Christine and staff around this work. I guess where I always start this work is I ask folks to think about two questions. Are you happy with your data? And is every classroom one you'd put your own flesh and blood? That's where we start this work. And if we don't have yeses to both, we bring our best selves to the table, and that's how we start doing this work together. This is not people getting thrown under the bus or doing the blame game. We know that there's been audits and reviews and all of this work that's happened in the district. We just haven't moved the way we need to move. And so everything that Christine has talked about are the things that we're working on. So the support the CCE brings to you is this ongoing dialogue with the county office and the folks at CCEE and with staff here to really look at, can you flip to the next? Who's got the? There it is. The focus and support that what we've been doing, and Christine really highlighted it. You have a lot of data systems, yet I don't think that we're using those the way we should be. So people that are in DA, differentiated assistance, and people that are not moving their districts because we aren't really using our data systems. So how do you know? I liken this to a marathon. So if you're running, do we have any marathon runners in here? So when you're, yes, that's right. So when you're running a marathon, you want to cross the finish line, hopefully standing upright, right? So in education, our marathon finish line is usually our state education or state assessments. All along a marathon when you're running, you have what's called water stops. You got to have your water stops and stay hydrated in order to get the finish line. So what you did by putting in common assessments in this district is you created the water stops for teachers and leaders to know whether or not we're on a right track and trajectory for students. If you want to know if you've lost a couple of pounds, how do you measure that? You step on a scale, you put on your pants. We all use metrics to measure whether we're moving in the right direction. So the fact that you've put those tools in teachers and leaders' hands is the first step in moving the district forward. So I applaud that. So you can see all the things that we've talked about. We've had a number of meetings with stakeholders in the district, and they talk about data chaos. There's a lot of people that want to use really good data. They just don't know how to get to it. You never make a principal fight or dig or have to look for data. You give it to them. Same thing with teachers. And so part of what we're doing is working with departments here to figure out how to do single sign-ons, where you just go in and you push one button and there you are getting your data. I think the other thing that you can see up there that we're working on is really creating the culture of data-driven decision-making. So building a cultural data literacy, if you will. So we have a lot of opinions and we sort of know where we're going, but unless we look at data, we don't really know whether we're going. So we're doing a lot of work around creating infrastructures and the culture to create the data-driven decision-making. Next week, we're having a little data summit with a bunch of folks coming to say, what's working, what's not working, what do you need? How do we at central office make this work better for schools? So as a former CAO in a very large district nearby, every bone in my body is central office solely exists to make sure that the schools, the teachers, and the leaders have what they need to move their schools. Our job is to move the branches off the pathway so that teachers and leaders can move faster. And all of this work starts at central office. So we need to sort of build little walkways between the silos that exist, because they're silos. We need to talk to each other. We need to, are we happy with our data? Or would we put our student in any classroom in this? That's the work that we're doing right now. It really starts with creating the common language, common understanding at the central office, and then bringing that good work and that support down to the schools once we get to that point. And then creating a rhythm of responsiveness to data. So a lot of times in education, not here in Sacramento, a lot of places in education, we admire data. We don't really know what to do with it, so we admire it. And this is really about, it's one thing to have your data, now what do we do with it? And that is where we're working with the MTSS to build interventions and structures. And really, year one is tier one. We're really quick to put kids in tiers of instruction. We've got to make sure that our first teaching is the best teaching that kids get. Students should only have to attend third grade once. You should only have to attend Algebra 9 once. And so our job is to make sure that we are giving the best first teaching and that we look at our data and we should respond to it accordingly. And so that's the work that we're doing. I think right now the infrastructures in the district are the ones that I'm eyeballing in terms of what do we need to do centrally to make sure that we can support our schools in the way they need to. The expectations, the support and accountability, I think there's a lot of people doing great work. This is a go slow to go fast. We just need to get better in having those regular reviews of data, holding folks supportively accountable for the work, and helping them get the kids where they need to be. So the organizational barriers, we're going to be looking at all the things that Christine talked about. We're looking at what are the organizational barriers that are getting in the way to have the things why we didn't move the Council of the Great City Schools report. What are those barriers and how do we bring people to the table to problem solve those? We haven't even talked about that yet, but we really are, my eye is looking toward the least restrictive environment. We've got lots of kids in special education that are being served in very restrictive placements. Separate schools, double the rate that we have in the state. We are higher than the state average in kids educated in separate schools. So those are some of the things that we need to look at. Suspension, we know, is an issue, and office daily referrals is another thing that I looked at. And we aren't talking a whole lot about instruction, but that's all on that. So I highlight this chart for you. I took a look at some of your data from suspension, and then I also looked at your data on office daily referrals. And so we sort of know the disproportionality that exists for suspension. That's been very clearly articulated in the district. I want to point out to you what it looks like for your office daily referrals. And the asterisk means that on the office daily referrals, it is 5 or more referrals to the office. So I looked at students in your district that were referred to the office 5 or more. We know that there's an inextricable link between sent to the office and suspension. So if you look at those data on that chart, just real quickly, on the office daily referrals, there is a huge disproportionality between, you can see, between white and black students being sent to the office. Huge if you look at the gen ed side. In 2018, if you were African American, you were 7 times more likely to be referred to the office for a discipline referral. In 2019, that raised to 10.5 times. So if you're African American in 2019 in this district, you were 10.5 times more likely to be referred to the office. Students with disabilities on the other side are, you can see, just for 18-19, 5.5 times more likely to be referred for discipline. And that dropped a little bit to 4.2%. So we've got an issue going on with office referrals that are resulting in kids being suspended. And so while we look at suspension, we've got a huge disproportionality around what's happening in the classroom, being sent down. And for me, I think I know that academics and behavior are inextricably linked. Kids are acting out in a classroom maybe because they're bored, or they're not being challenged, or they're being over-challenged. There's lots of reasons why kids are being referred to the office. And so I just want to call that out, that's one of the things that we're going to be looking at. So lots to do, lots of work to do, and I appreciate the opportunity to work with y'all.
Thank you so much, Ms. Elliott, Dr. Elliott. Sorry, Christine, were you wrapping up?
Well, we have our CBO, and I don't know, are we going to keep going? Because I know we ran out of our time.
Yes,
Keep
please,
going?
go ahead.
Because one of the things that Rose Ramos and I want you to know too is that we are working hand in hand, arm in arm, to best understand the work that needs to happen for our children. As Judy said, and we all know, nothing happens in a silo. And so as we work to support our students with all this work, we need to be understanding how that looks, of course, for us with our fiscal needs. And so Rose is going to share for you this evening some information on our fiscal needs and our fiscal history around special education.
A couple of slides here to orient you. This is more of a trend analysis on where we've been with our actual expenses, and then, of course, our current year budget. Broad categories. We didn't break it down too much, but you'll see some more information in the slides that are coming up. So on our total revenue, we have our total revenue top line, of course, our expenses and our contribution. And I just want to clarify that the total revenue represents the amount of money we get from the state and federal. So we combined everything there together just for simplification purposes. So what you'll see is, and then the contribution, of course, is the difference that the district makes up because we do not get sufficient 100% funding to support our special ed programs. So it's pretty telling that you'll see that our contributions, of course, have gone up because the cost of doing business for any educational program, regardless special ed or regular ed, does go up. However, our funding from the state and federal government has not kept that same pace. And this next chart is just simply the same information, just in a chart format. And what you'll see is that if we look back to 15-16 compared to the current year, our contribution has gone up by 50% over the last 4 years, but the same is not true for our funding from the state or the federal government. And then the next slide, these are just some explanations on some of our common or more our broader items that come under expenditures with respect to our contracts. The first is the NPS rates that are our non-public school rates. Just to give you a little bit of background on that, and of course Becky is here to provide more details. Our rates over the last 10 years have been aligned. There's been a lot of work done to try to make sure that we are bringing those to a consistent rate. We had some disparity with some very low cost providers, very high cost providers. So in Becky's team with the SELPA, they have really worked hard to try to bring those more into an average rate. And it's not just, whatever random rate, but there is a process for this. What happens is that the providers do submit a request for a rate increase. They undergo a review through SELPA. SELPA looks at it to make sure it's reasonable. Does it make sense? And then they compare it to the COLA to make sure that do we have the funding to sustain this. So that's how that whole process goes. And of course, if you want more details on that, Becky can certainly provide that. Now, the NPA, which are non-public agencies, those provide services for things like our nurses and our speech, because we know we have a shortage. That's all districts statewide. So those increases are a little bit more difficult because there's such a shortage. Those are compared to the COLA for consideration, but sometimes we're just up against the wall and our students need services and we have to provide them and we should provide them. So those are the areas that we're still struggling with a bit in terms of trying to get a control of, and that's just our district, pretty much statewide.
Right.
These are some notes on the revenue, just so you can see it's the same thing I said earlier. As you will see, our rate change for our state revenue over the past 4 years has changed by about 1.25%. This last year you saw a spike, and that was just the one-time money that we got, so that'll go back to a normal level. And the same is true for the federal government. That's only increased by less than 1% over the last 4 years. And then we got a spike again this year for the same reason, the one time. Can I just go back? I want to explain a little bit on the AB 602 funding. That's the state funding that we hear a lot about, that we're not funded appropriately, and what's the mystery behind that? No mystery. The reason that our funding looks a little off is because that funding is based on a district's ADA count. So for us, since we're a declining district and our special ed ADA is going in the opposite direction, it's increasing, it doesn't really move in the direction that it should together. So our funding for ADA, for our district ADA is decreasing while our special ed population is increasing. So that's why we have a disconnect there, and they should be moving in the same direction. So hopefully that'll be fixed in the coming year. I know there's a lot of work being done down at the state to correct that. And so just to give you an example, the district's enrollment has been declining by about 0.5%. Just one more time, please, really quick. And then our special ed enrollment has been increasing by 1.5% over the same period, the last 4 years. So that's that disconnect there. And then this chart, we borrowed this from school services because it does tell the picture, and this is really characteristic of Sac City as well. It just shows you the funding sources. You don't even have to do too much studying to see that the state funding is represented by that dark brown, and then the red is the federal funding, and the green is what the district has to contribute. And this is a statewide, districts across the state. So it's about 65% on average. We're about a little bit over that, maybe about 66%. So just really quick snapshot just to provide you with that fiscal picture on special ed for our district and then what's happening in the state. So we're in the same boat as, pretty much many districts are. And I think that's it.
That is.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make sure that we shared what are the next steps with some clarity so that we all know where we're going to make sure we make these changes. We have started to identify and have pulled together with input from so many different people, the criteria for a first cohort of schools to enter into MTSS, because remember, we can't do this quickly. We're going to go through a cohort model of about 1/3 of our schools at a time to make sure that we can support and have the capacity to give the type of support that we know this needs to really launch and weave into the fabric of our system. We're going to continue to work to build central office capacity. We're going to continue to provide professional learning, specifically focusing on discipline and suspension, as well as monitoring the implementation of our IEP plans and our student work inside the classroom, continued monitoring of our expenditures, collaboration with our SELPAs, and continued state advocacy to increase funding for students with disabilities. We would love to answer any questions or offer any additional support that we can if you have any thoughts.
Before we take board member comments and questions, we're going to take public comments.
We have 8 comments. The first 4 will include Kathy Bryan, Angie Sutherland, Sarah Williams Kingsley, and Grace Trujillo.
Good evening.
Hello, Madam Chair, Superintendent, members of the board, and the community. My name's Kathy Bryan, and I work for the State Council on Developmental Disabilities. We advocate for the full inclusion rights for kids with, for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And I was happy to see that Kenya urged participation in the Community Advisory Committee. I think that's a great place for you to be, and I thank the members for stepping up to be part of that. We do advocate for full inclusion rights in all community activities, so I also urge you to look on the web at our website, the State Council for Developmental Disabilities, and we are taking a survey now, and we want to hear from you, parents, students, community members, about how you want us to focus our state plan. So please, I urge you to take a look at that, and thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Hello again, Sarah Williams Kingsley. Thank you again for inviting Judy to present to us tonight. We, as a CAC, had a chance to meet with her November, and I was really impressed by her comments then and her comments tonight. She's got a lot of insight into how we can do this work, and after I've been up before you several times in the last year asking for help, and we came to you and asked to participate in the MTSS process, and we did for a while. Myself and Kenya attended lots of meetings last year about it, and it really did feel like we were spinning our wheels. We would go to meetings and there would be great conversation, and it didn't feel like anything was happening. And we had the same feeling about the Council of Great City Schools, the theories of action. We talked about them a lot. We had so many conversations, and there wasn't a place to really push that work. There's an overwhelming amount of day-to-day work. Without real leadership, it doesn't go anywhere. And I really feel like in the last 2 months, that has really begun to change, and we can feel things moving. And I want to thank you for that. And I also want to say, reiterate that the rollout of the common assessments is fantastic news. And so many of us that really pushed for that are so grateful. And I know that there have been hiccups along the way, and we look forward to hearing a progress report on that, how it's going, how many students have had those tests, what the data show. I'm really curious about what the data show. I think it's really going to inform further conversations about where we go and why we're where we are with special education. Why do we have so many students in special ed? Maybe it's partly because our general ed isn't working as well as it should. So I'm hopeful about that.
Thank you, Ms. Kingsley.
Hello, I'm Angie Sutherland. Angel and I are with Coalition for Students with Disabilities. And just thank you so much for having this topic on the agenda tonight. It's been a long time since the district has discussed MTSS, and we're badly in need of this for our students. We need trained support teams at all the schools. Students with disabilities are the most underperforming group in the whole district, and they're capable of so much more. And so I'm not here to complain tonight. I see some hopeful things. Just wondering a little bit about the schools that are going to start. Just worried about the other schools being left out. And I know in the past that, like, when some initiatives have tried to roll out, because they couldn't agree with, the adults couldn't agree how it was going to happen, then it stopped.
Yeah.
And I don't want this to happen with this. Also, I don't want to forget about the other 10 recommendations from the audit, because they were all important. So I don't know if any of those are being cut. The other thing is the budget for special ed, just to make sure that the CAC and the other required stakeholders will have a robust process this year. It hasn't really happened in past years, and I think that would help, including having teachers involved in that part. And we could have a lot of solutions already in place, but like I said, a lot of things have been blocked. And I just ask that you as leaders and you as district leaders as well, make sure that everyone is in sync and everyone is working together, because it won't work just top down. It has to be everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sutherland.
Angel Garcia, Coalition for Students with Disabilities. Good evening. Just wanted to call out the language games, our audit versus report. Let's just call a spade a spade. We're failing our special education students. Hats off to the McClatchy community for their advocacy, but I'd love to see as many community members come out and advocate for our students with disabilities who have been failed for decades. Us disability advocates have been screaming for years. It's sad to me that my child was in such an unsafe, inaccessible environment that he not only failed, but he regressed beyond what I had ever thought. It wasn't until I unilaterally placed him in an environment that valued him and used his strengths that he consistently progressed academically and socially. You improve instruction by implementing evidence-based practices such as those identified for students with dyslexia, or those that have been identified in the many mini task force created. You improve culture by ensuring that students see themselves reflected in the school and by effectively offering and requiring professional development opportunities and then measuring implementation and outcomes. We've had lots of time to plan, implement, and evaluate. Let's stop making excuses and act now. Lack of applying for grants, some of which I've forwarded over the years to the special ed department. Lack of ability to program plan, resulting in high costs for transportation and lack of structure for students. Inability to effectively plan and implement transition plans. Lack of ability to determine what behaviors are manifested because of disability. Lack of strong and structured partnerships. Lack of ability to implement professional development. I can go on and on. Ask the special ed department what they know about students who have exited the system. The outcomes are dismal. We're setting our kids up for institutionalization, unemployment, homelessness, and lack of inclusion in the larger community. Act now.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Do we have any other public comments
do.
at this time? Oh, we
We
do.
have Grace Trujillo, and then we have Allison French-Tubo, Kenya Martinez, and Cecile Nunley.
Good evening, members of the board. I think it'll be hard for me to top that, right? But I think being an accounting person and knowing numbers, I think one of the key things, nice to meet you. For the budget, I think Kim Forrest always talked about researching and looking into the budget. I think the key things is needing a new system. One of the key things, I think, is just reinforcing, like Angel said, is giving them the proper support, the guidance. You know, it's so funny. A lot of the parents were talking about moving their kids over to Jedred or the private schools. I did that, you know, and I could see the huge difference in my son. I knew this was coming, and I didn't want him to put him in those situations. That's why I say it's worth it for those parents that were here. Move them over. You don't want your kid to suffer for 3-4 years until everything is worked out. And I stand, you know, I forgot to mention, thank you for taking the time to standing up, because I think prior members would have done this. We wouldn't be in the situation we are now. I think for special ed, you know, Andrew is struggling, but again, I prayed, and for some miraculous reasons, he has progressed. I think in the fact in the environment. Environment is everything. And if you have that working together is the key thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. Hi, Allison.
Hello. Good evening. Happy New Year. Excited to see this opportunity. I guess I'm here as a parent who does not have a child with a disability, but as was addressed, this is for all of us. And this is actually a great opportunity to restructure the framework of our schools, to focus on student outcomes, and to also give our staff a chance to be able to make a positive difference in the outcomes for their students. Because of course, we need teacher buy-in, but we can't wait to have staff buy-in on something like this. This needs to happen. Of course, it costs money to do anything, but it costs money to do nothing as well. I was excited to hear SCTA's report mention MTSS. I can only hope they're watching from home, because I don't see them here to be hearing this exciting news. But again, I just want to end on a positive note to say that I see this as one of the most promising things that has come in front of the board in quite a while. So I encourage your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison.
I just wanted to personally thank Allison as a parent who has children who are not receiving special education services, and to actually receive her support is outstanding. We need more parents like her in the district who support students receiving special education services. I say that over and over again because I think the district and some of the administrators here that work in this center don't realize that special education is in fact a service. It's not a person, it's not a place, it is a service. And I hope that they really take that to heart. Our students are students first. I am so happy to hear this report. I have to tell you, I felt like I was in church, and I'm not even a church member, and almost wanted to scream out, hallelujah, it's about time that this is happening. So I have I fully support our CAO. I'm so happy that we have Dr. Judy Elliott helping implement what I think is going to be great for this district. I just really want to drive the fact that what Angie said, we need to have not just a top-down approach, but a bottom-up approach. We need the support of our teachers. There are good teachers in this district who are willing to do the right thing by our students, but they need the support of this district. They need professional learning. They want to do it. They're here. They're in the corners. I can mention names. If you came to me, I will tell you the names of some of the most beautiful teachers who have taught my children personally. So I hope that as this gets implemented, that you invite teachers, not necessarily an organization, but actual teachers one by one. And you guys know what I mean by that. So I hope to see that come to fruition. And that's all I have to say. I do have one hiccup. I know my time isn't over because my time started a little bit earlier, and that is to point out in the SPED budget, I would like for us to look at possibly adding contracts to some of the things in our budget. I'm not going to point out particular organizations that we've partnered with, but I believe our budget tends to be inflated because we continue to use these same organizations. So I would like to see competitive contracts.
Thank you.
So please, when we restructure this, I would like to see contracts throughout this entire district submitted by different organizations, whether it's transportation. I can go on, but I don't want to point anyone out.
I want to make sure we let you go a little bit over, but thank you. And if you have anything you want to share, just kind of bulleting that out and writing, those are great suggestions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I have to admit, I was following Kenya, and I was thinking the same thing because it was like, oh my God, this is wonderful. A lot of the comments, the common assessments, thank you all for sticking by and saying we need to do those common assessments. That is huge. And as you well know, that's been one of the recommendations and one of the stumbling blocks. The other thing, I couldn't sit still because I wasn't planning on speaking on this, but I had to because I wanted to, be like Kenya and say amen and hallelujah. Thank you to Christine. You are a great and a treasure for the CAO. We just hope to see this continuing to be implemented. And the one that I could not sit still on, of course, was the suspensions and that office daily referrals. Those office daily referrals, we don't get that data. And you guys know that I had to ask repeatedly just to get the suspension data, but you knew that that hidden data was there. So it's so important. And again, it's one of those things, if we don't see it, what was the quote? When you know better, you do better.
Yeah.
And that's so important. So it's so great to see the data, and I'd love to see more data instead of less data. But thank you so much, and thank you,
Thank you very
Christine.
much. We have no further public comments at this time. We're going to begin with board member comments and questions. I just want to really thank our CAO for how she has leaned into this very difficult work of ensuring that we are meeting our moral obligations to our special education students. And I also want to thank Dr. Elliott for bringing your state and national expertise to helping us tackle this work head on. Many of you know that I am the mother of a special education student. A student who, for the first 4 years of her life, had no foundational learning and would very often be a statistic left behind. What I found is my daughter, and I so appreciate the focus on full inclusion and push in versus pull out. My daughter, in a previous environment, in a quote-unquote high-performing public school within the district, was coming home weekly telling me she hated being pulled out of class all the time. She was being made fun of from her peers because it was so apparent that she was getting services. In the school that we have her in now, the public school, also neighborhood school, she was receiving push-in services. And one point, she didn't even know she was getting services anymore. And I reached out and said, what's going on? My daughter's not getting services, because it was so seamlessly integrated within the classroom. So my question, building on that, and the source of self-esteem and pride that she has felt in having her integrated education plan, is how do we roll that out in all schools across the district? Because I'm so happy to hear that we have this vision for growing this. But frankly, I am tired of waiting for people on the ground to say, I am willing to do this. I want to be able to say, we're going to do this because it's the right thing to do, as we did with assessments.
Well, I could say a lot about that, but if you go back to what happened in Sacramento City Unified, and I think 1992 with the Rachel Holland case, where there was a fight and she won the right to be able to attend her home school. And here we are in Sac City when I first came here as a parent who was following that Rachel Holland case, hoping that I could have my daughter who had severe disabilities at her home school and waiting to see, cheering for Rachel. And then my daughter in a different district was able to attend a homeschool and receive those types of inclusive services. And then we're still fighting for that here for our kids. So remember, and I'll keep saying this, we have to know that we can't go fast, because we don't want any of this to crash. We've tried these things before. I've not been here, but I've been told. And so we have to make sure that we're taking the right steps. And every single step keeps us going forward. We don't want to go too fast and get pulled way back. That's not going to help any of our kids. So that's the goal. And when the very first meeting that Dr. Elliott and I had, we identified immediate goals, short-term goals, midterm goals, and long-term goals. And know that your goals that you're speaking of as a mom are for all 43,000 of our kids.
That's absolutely right. Board Member Pritchett.
Thank you, President Ryan. And thank you all for a really thorough presentation. But I gotta say, I don't have any questions for you. I just want to say the award for tonight's best presentation goes out to Christine Beta. You know, there's oftentimes, and no, I hope that, you know, staff here will not take offense to this, but there's oftentimes when presentations are brought to us as a board member, and we're left wondering to ourselves, like, well, what exactly does that mean? And what are the true numbers? And what are they not showing us? And speaking from, you know, Member Wu, we don't know what we don't know, right? And so, you know, tonight's presentation, you were calling out those deficiencies and then giving us action items and saying, this is what we have to do, but we're not going to do it fast. We're going to make sure we build on these. So thank you. If every presentation was like that, it would be amazing. I mean, there were parts of your presentation where I was literally like holding my breath, like, oh my gosh, what is she going to say next? Like, I mean, literally. You know, and you see these women in the back of the room? Those are engaged parents. And for a long time, they've been coming to these board meetings for years. You listened. You listened. Okay? Continue that, please. I know you will. And you know, when you gave your rising tide thing, you know, when you were talking about the rising tide.
Tide floats all boats.
Yes, thank you. All I kept on thinking was that, you know, when you look at an ocean, you know, and, you know, sometimes it's really calm on the top, but down below, there's a lot of work going on, right? To get it up and going and trying to get that tide going up. That's exactly what's going on here. All that's coming down from the bottom, right? To get that tide going. So I just could, the way you said it, I just envisioned it like, wow, this is what our students need. And I just want to call out, I don't think in my almost 8 years on this board, I have ever heard an applause for the audience for a staff report. So thank you. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Morowski.
Thank you, and I'll follow on to that. I really appreciate the presentation, the work, and the vision that you're demonstrating, and that all the staff is working on. Appreciate Dr. Elliott and all of the support we're getting from SCOE as well. So I learned a lot in this presentation. I learned more about MTSS as a structure, not just tiers. I really appreciated the reference to holding people supportively accountable, I think was the way you phrased it. And I just, that means so much to me because we need the accountability and we also need that support. And I know that also takes a lot to build, so we definitely need to build those things together. I really appreciated how you said how we do what we do at the central office to support our schools, administrators, and teachers to move student achievement forward. And I really appreciate that focus and how you're always talking about what's happening in the classroom, what's happening with our instruction and our students. I guess I have one comment, and I know, I am really glad to have you on as our CAO. I am really glad to have Ms. Ramos on as our CBO. We have a fairly new team here that I feel really, really good about. So this is not saying all of these things should have been done by you in the last 2 months, but I do want to go back to something I brought up before on this dais, and that's the budget presentation. The data that we're given on our special education programs is wholly insufficient. It's very, very difficult to have accountability in that program from a budgetary standpoint when the line items are just these huge buckets of money. And I've noticing that the 16-17 to 17-18, that's an $8 million jump in overall expenditures. From 18-19 to 19-20 is projected to be $11 million year over year. And I don't know why. I don't know if that's because of the increase in diagnosis. I don't know if that's because the rates are going up in our non-public schools. And those types of questions, I think, really point towards the trends that are going on in our program. So you don't have to respond. This is something that we should and will follow up on. But I do want to just encourage a very robust budget presentation, because I think that helps us put all the pieces together and have true accountability.
Thank you, Board Member Morowski. Board Member Garcia.
Yes, thank you. So I am very excited to see that there is a plan with concrete steps. We know it's going to take some time, but there's a plan. There's vision. So I'm very excited about that. I want to thank you both for putting this together for us to really understand what we are about to embark on. So I did have some questions about the selection of the 25 schools. I just, if you can share a little bit more about what you're thinking. Is it going to be elementary, middle, high school, diverse, spread out throughout the district? I'm just trying to see where you're coming from.
Those are really good questions, and questions that we started with as we started trying to decide what would we need in our first 20. We're looking at about 25 schools. We think that's where we have the capacity to support, and what would we want those schools to have as we move forward in that cadre, because we're looking to build in that first group, a group that can build capacity as we move the second group forward. So just with brevity first, before I share the criteria, what we're looking at is we'll have a year one training, and then when that year one moves to year two, they'll be in year two training as we move the year one in. But if we do a really great job, and I know that we will, with that year one training, when they move into year two, we now have built all this capacity in our infrastructure for support to support the year 1 schools. And then we do that again in year 3. So what do we need in that first year of schools to make sure we build that? So some of the things, one of the criteria that we looked at includes what is the readiness around site-wide behavior expectations at a school? Has the school started some of that work? Have they started some work around culture climate? Have they done any of those pieces? Because we really know, and we hear our parents calling this out, and we see our metrics. We have got to get into instruction. And to be able to really move the dial on instruction, we also know that we need to make sure that we have safe classrooms where our kids and our teachers can take risks. So one of the big criteria that we're looking at is, what is the readiness from those perspectives? And we've been analyzing schools and looking at that. We're also looking across multiple segments and across the district, and we're looking at schools that already have inclusive practices, as well as schools that do not, because we want to build a model that shows as we move forward, all of our schools can and will do this. Another thing that we're looking at is leadership and not just willingness, because we're not moving forward with this where you get to choose whether or not your children are getting what they need, because MTSS is going to ensure that all children get what they need and that we build that strong foundation. We're building it right now on sand, and so it sinks. So we're also looking at, from a leadership perspective, are we in a place right now with capacity in the school where we can really lead and lift this work? Another piece we're looking at, some of our schools are already using some sort of a data team inherent in this work that we're doing, and you can see that as you go back and start to study all those components of MTSS, and you heard a lot about data tonight and the work we need to do. One of the, we've been sharing with the teams that we're meeting with is that we're launching this with guardrails, in that we are going to say these are the must-dos. Within those guardrails, you're going to need to meet the needs of your school and your kids. But one of the must-dos for the criteria for the first round is, do you have any sort of a leadership team that is already working around data? So we do have our chronic absenteeism work is some of the most coherent work happening in our system, and those teams are already meeting. That team could serve as a data analysis team for an MTSS piece. So we're looking for schools that already have some of these readiness components, and there are others, as we think that they are more in place to be able to lift the work and really start to launch some of the expectations around instruction. So that's the start of our criteria. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you. That was pretty comprehensive. And I have 2 more questions just so I can give others the opportunity to also ask questions. So I appreciate the highlighting the sent homes. I think that's that number coming down is, trending in the right direction, but it's still 164 students, right? So I'm curious to know not only of the sent homes, but also the in-school suspensions, or even the suspensions out of school. What do we do? Do we have a policy in place in order to ensure that the student, regardless of what level of suspension that student has, has schoolwork, that they can continue to make some progress, homework that gets graded, that still counts towards a grade, rather than just doing nothing. So do we have something in place? Are we thinking about how we can still continue to support the student in that regard?
That is another excellent question. Mr. Stefan Brown has been emailing, gathering people, and having conversation around listening in and leaning in and finding out that we don't do a good job of that. We are not right now ensuring that if a student is suspended, that they're getting the work and that they're able to make up that work and that work does go into the grade. Less important for me, even though I know our grades are important as we get into secondary and we know what we need our grades for, but really important is the missed learning, because every time we have unfinished learning, it it impairs our ability to learn the next piece. So we're actually working with Stefan on putting together a policy and making sure that our principals, our site leaders, as well as our teachers know what we have to do around the data and make sure that if a student is absent due to a suspension, that they can have that work and that we can accept that work as makeup work.
Thank you.
It's a great question.
I'm interested in learning where we end up with that. And then my last question is about, I thought I saw somewhere in the presentation, the capacity building or professional development for administration in terms of discipline. I didn't see teachers there, so I'm just wondering, how is that going to trickle down into the classroom?
I think that's always one of our challenges that we, in every group that we're meeting with, that comes up as something that we have to be able to tackle. And so I've heard some really great ideas from our leaders where they have said, here's how I have planned professional learning and ensured that my teachers have come. And so what we're really leaning into and listening for, Member Garcia, are the strategies that are working in our system to be sure to get the teachers to the table so that they'll come and they'll learn. I've heard that sometimes we've planned some incredible learning and then our teachers just are not there. And we want to make sure in this case that that is not what happens. So as we talk about these data teams, when we start to build our training for MTSS, which will happen next year, we're going to have our leaders inviting teams that will include teachers. And we really do want to create a positive, just like we're doing with our common assessments. Once you have that data, teachers are saying, and I need strategies, and I need intervention, and I want more learning. We're looking to make sure that that happens as it moves forward in a positive way. And we're hearing some ways that some of our principals are sharing that they have been able to get their teachers to come for training. And we'll be using those strategies and we're listening, doing a lot of listening.
Great, glad to hear that.
Thank you.
Board Member Wu.
President. I just a couple questions. What does NPS stand for and what does NPA stand for?
Becky, do you want to share some of that? It stands for non-public school. And is there anything? And non-public agency.
And when we're talking about year one, year two, is this the first year or is next year the first year?
That's a really great question. Next year's year one, but what we're doing this year is one of the things that we started learning as we started bringing in groups and meeting was we found really quickly that we needed to make sure that we had common understanding and common language, and we have to have that at central so that we can ensure that this lifts. And so this year, we've been bringing in some small groups, and we're going to continue to do that through this year to build capacity and to lean in and listen to hear some of these strategies so that we're ready to better launch next school year. So next school year, technically, is year one. Remember, we're not going to go nearly fast enough.
I understand that. Okay. So the small groups you're bringing in, what do they comprise of?
We're calling them our district leadership teams. We have principals from across the district. We have principals who have been working on some of these work groups that have been rolling in our district for a period of time because they've been studying MTSS, they've been studying the components, they're very interested in the work, and so we have some principals, and then a wide variety of central office staff, some of the most critical people in being able to understand and ensure that they have the common language, common understanding to help us do and lift the work.
And are these from the schools, do they represent more than the 25 that will be in year one?
We don't have all 25 schools because we have not formally said these are the schools. So the principals that we've been inviting in are the ones who have been participating in these MTSS work groups that you heard our community talk about that have been moving.
Okay.
Because they already had some background knowledge, and we wanted to honor their time and the work that they've spent. So those are the principals we've been bringing in.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So as we close out this presentation, I think Board Member Vang also has a comment.
I'll keep this short. I just wanted to thank staff and the advocates and our parents who are here today. I think the only question that I have, I'm really excited about the work. And on the next step on the last page, I think a big part of it is that we definitely need increased funding in order to do this work. And I want to have a better understanding of what that advocacy plan actually looks like from the school board level and also from superintendent. Maybe he could speak a little bit about this. Because right now, Sac City Unified School District, we have 3 assembly members and 1 state senator. And I wonder what is the conversation with them, because we have the Capitol in our backyard. I would like to have a better understanding of what the advocacy plan is so that board members, we can also hold ourselves accountable as electeds to do kind of the fighting at the forefront as well for more funding. And so I don't know if there's a strategy around this, but if you could speak on that, or if superintendent, that would be great.
So I welcome the superintendent. Maybe you can also speak to the 10 large urban school districts that are working together with a shared agenda of state advocacy, both with the administration and legislature on special education funding.
I'll be very brief. Thank you, President Ryan. Member Vang, we have had conversations about increasing funding around special education with our entire delegation of elected officials at the state capitol. But in addition, we have also signed on to a request from several large urban school districts, LA Unified included, to request a meeting with Governor Newsom specifically on this topic as well, to make sure that we are addressing what CBO Ms. Rose mentioned in terms of just the increased costs that are coming to us, which we, of course, are obligated and commit to providing services to our students. But there's a variety of things that are shaping up as the legislature just convened.
Thank you.
If you have any ideas of how we can enhance or federal funding, because we know that the feds give us about 11%, and they're supposed to, under the law, give us 40%. That would, more than quadruple the funds that we get. If you have any ideas, probably in March we'll be back in DC, so that'll be the time to advocate for it.
Thank you, Board Member Wu. So I think you heard from our board just a tremendous amount of appreciation for your efforts. This was a very different conversation than the one we were having a year ago, expressing frustration on the lack of movement towards the audit recommendations. I am incredibly encouraged to hear the level of vision you have, but also the depth of work that's currently underway. Dr. Elliott, please continue to work with us. We need you, and we are so grateful for your expertise. And I hope, we have had so many positive updates this evening. One of the things that continues to keep me up at night in our special ed inequities as we talk about a district that is rooted in equity in everything we do is this idea, and both Dr. Elliott spoke to it and you did as well, that in our district, we ask families with special education children to move their children often from year to year, from one school to the next, to be able to get the appropriate services. I know families and have sat down with families who over a course of 6 years have been in 6 different schools. This is a civil rights issue. This is an equity issue. This has lifelong psychological implications aside from just the student achievement. Dr. Elliott, I would love to hear what we can do to make the structural changes necessary to end these woefully inadequate practices.
President Ryan,
And I think
I just very quickly, President Ryan, because we still have an agenda item or a couple of agenda items, and I don't want to keep anyone here too much longer, but particularly our very committed community members and parents who have been here meeting after meeting, expressing hope and expectations for all of us to continue to stay focused on this body of work. But I also do want to just express my gratitude to Mr. Armelino, who made a trip here from elsewhere to be part of the presentation, and do want to thank CCE for your support, as well as Superintendent Gordon. I don't know how many partnerships are taking place throughout the state where CCEE is working with respective county offices of education, but for us it's been a very good experience working with both the county office and CCEE, and we hope to continue to work with both entities. Of course, Dr. Elliott and her commitment to supporting Sac City. She traveled this afternoon from Sonoma to be with us. So I appreciate it. And then to the board, I just want to, hopefully you were able to recognize that, we're still very young and embryonic in this approach. But the idea for us was that we would present a presentation to you around special ed, where you would see cabinet to cabinet partnership between our CAO and, in this case, our CBO as well, our CAO and our CBO, so that you weren't hearing an update just on programmatic topics, but also infused with what does it mean from a budgetary standpoint. And our goal is that this cabinet-to-cabinet interaction will result in each of our cabinet members having a better understanding of how one's body of work impacts another body of work. And so I can't see anything negative about a CBO better understanding the needs of our students with disabilities and what it will require for us to be creative in making sure that we have the funding and the resources to meet the needs of all of our students. So,
thank you. So this was an informational item only. Thank you again. We so appreciate your time. Oh, I think we have one final comment. Please come up to the microphone so that those 5 individuals watching from home actually can hear you.
I know you're trying to move forward. I've sat in many board meetings over the years. I just really want to recognize you, Superintendent. I want to let you know the reason why we are here is because of him. He came to us. He's been seeking solutions, over a year ago. And I'm not privy to conversations you had prior around this, right? I've seen the reports in particular, but he came to me, he came to my staff, continually asking for resources, which to me really shows good leadership, right? And that's extremely important, right? That continued leadership too. So the reason why we're here and the reason why we'll continue to be here is because of his leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We so appreciate that. And I think that's a perfect segue to item 9.2, approve the addendum to the superintendent's employment agreement. I am going to turn this over to Board Member Wu, who, for many of you in the audience, served as the chair of our Superintendent Evaluation Committee, and will be opening this item.
Thank you, President Ryan. Before the board considers this item, I'd like to summarize what is before the board for discussion as an action item. Current term of the superintendent's agreement is scheduled to expire June 30th, 2021. Based upon the superintendent's performance and 2 positive evaluations, the addendum would extend the term through June 30th, 2023. Therefore, if the superintendent receives a positive annual evaluation in any subsequent year, the term of the agreement would be extended an additional year. All other terms of the superintendent's agreement will remain the same without modification or amendment. Superintendent's compensation continues as stated in the superintendent's employment agreement. I leave it open to the other members.
So we will take board member questions and comments. I think for those of you who had an opportunity, like myself, to read the state auditor's report, one of the themes that jumped out was a need for consistent leadership. It sits with me often that one of our senior employees of almost 30 years shares that in his 30 years, he's been with 20-plus superintendents, interim, and appointments. And we know that continuity of leadership and the ability to create transformational change in education is contingent upon having leadership that understands the system and can both act with urgency and a long-range vision, which takes time. We are hearing the call of the Auditor General that we develop a pipeline of consistent leadership and a commitment to that consistent leadership so that we can right the ship in these difficult times. And with that, we are choosing to move forward on this action. We have a comment from Board Member Pritchett. Oh, sorry, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do. We have 7.
Oh,
Please come to the podium as your name is called. Donna Zick, Cecile Nunley, Frank DeYoung, and Liz Guillen.
Good evening. I'm a parent of a junior in the Sac City Unified School District, and we've had 12 years of fantastic education. Amazing people have shared their wealth of information with my child and have helped him to grow into a really nice person and a very well-educated person. And I want to thank you for that, and I want to thank you for your service, all of you, for sitting through these very long meetings. and you haven't even taken a stretch break yet. However, I want to tell you, as a parent, I'm also concerned because as I heard about the renewal of the contract today, I thought to myself, what's the criteria for this? What's the criteria for renewal? And what are your methods for success, your identifications for success? Fiscal solvency, you know? How's the district doing fiscally? What's your relation with the laborers, with all of your employees? It's not going well. Your union, you continue to be at war with your union. And, you know, district enrollment is dropping. And so these are some major criteria here. And you're about to invest a lot of public money in one position that's supposed to be solving this stuff. And it's not. He's not doing it. And so I'm here to express my concern about that and that the district is not getting better. And when people talk about the school district now, they include words like beleaguered or failing, and that's not okay. So I urge you to take this decision very seriously, this investment in this person very seriously, and to tell you that as a parent, I'm very concerned and that I don't think we're going in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Nunley.
Okay, Frank and I had a debate as to who was going to go first. He has to follow me now. But really, I just wanted to say that obviously I've spoken on this item many, many times and really talked to the board because it is so important that there's that consistency of leadership. We didn't get into a lot of these problems overnight. A lot of these problems occurred because at times it was every year that there was a new superintendent. And when it gets into that, people have a tendency to make poor decisions. And it's not just poor decisions, the board, I'm talking about poor decisions were brought to the board, and then you guys were asked to approve in many cases. So needing that consistency of leadership is so, so important. It also, when you think about Measure H, one of those things that you want to see that continue, you have to have that continuance of leadership for that program to be for that bond to be successful. It's so critically important. It's so critically important to the administration to make sure that they have someone that's pushing them, making sure that they're going in the right direction. And I want to commend the board. I think you guys have been holding together in some very difficult times. And it's critical that you continue that moving forward. So I applaud you. I am in support wholeheartedly of continuing the leadership. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cecile. Mr. DeYoung.
Frank DeYoung, Sutterville Elementary, Sam Brennan Middle School, and McClatchy High School parent. I would like to say that I fully support the decision that I hope the board is going to make. The district's in crisis, and what you need is steady leadership. Look at the last presentation. What did the people say that are coming to help us solve our problems? It's because of the superintendent. He's the one who brought us here. And if you think other districts aren't aware of this, and they're not looking and saying, man, if we can get a hold of this guy, I think we should take him. And so, you know, to talk like a baseball term, you don't wait till his contract's up and then try to sign them, because they're going to find a better deal. You got to let them know that they're wanted and they're needed. And he's a leader that we need, a leader with vision. He understands where we are, and he has a vision for where he'd like us to be. And it's going to take patience, and that's hard for a lot of parents to see. You know, they want it to like turn over tomorrow and everything's wonderful and the world's perfect. It takes a long time to fix things that have been the way they have been for a long time. And so I fully support going forward with this, and I ask the board to vote yes on this agenda item. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We have five, oh, sorry.
Ian.
Good evening. Hello, I'm Liz Guillen, and I'm speaking tonight in my personal capacity. Happily, I'm at the point in my life where my personal and professional just get so intertwined, it's really hard to separate them. But my professional experience is what prompts me, gives me the willingness to speak in support of your proposal. The California's new funding system has 8 state priorities. And those 8 state priorities don't align with all the priorities of others in this room, other parents, other students. All that to say that this is a really complicated, education is really complicated. One of the things that impressed me from day one of the superintendent's employment is his willingness and his statement of commitment to using data to uncover truth, whether it was good or hard truth. And we have a lot of hard truths that we've been looking at, that have been staring at us in the face. Unfortunately, in all these priorities that we all have, you know, the state priorities, our priorities, whether they are about funds, you know, who we get along with, the employees, the staff, everything, there are inequities to be changed. And changing those rubs some people the wrong way. Mm-hmm. That makes it really hard. If he's committed to doing the changes that have been made so far, and I hope that there will be some that are identified. I mean, we've heard some just in terms of using the data around college readiness, identification for access, identification for early intervention, those kinds of things. We know that there's more, but a lot of people don't know that.
Thank you, Ms. Guillen.
I recommend we commit to him and to knowing more about the district and participating more. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Ms. Guillen.
I was watching the clock.
Okay, 6 more. Superintendent Dave Gordon, Marisol Aviña, Maria Rodriguez, Allison French-Tubo, Sarah Williams-Kingsley, and Kenya Martinez.
Thank you very, very much. Once again, Board, as you know, we oversee in my office all of the 13 districts in Sacramento County for their budgets and other sorts of assistance. This district has had incredible instability over the years. You've had 6 superintendents since 2008. By contrast, Elk Grove has had 2. Your neighbor districts simply don't do this. If you go back to the year my youngest child graduated from the HIS program at McClatchy High School, you've had 13 superintendents. You really need to create the stability and the continuity to follow through on much of this work and go from a culture of leadership instability and mistrust and scolding to a culture of stability, continuity, collaboration, and trust. You've got to break the cycle that's been going on. And I think that will allow you to rebuild staffing in the district office so the good people that you have some help and move forward and act on a long-term plan which will serve the most needy children in the district. I mean, special ed is a great example of something that can be done really, really well if you take the time to work it through and create a system. The same with raising up our underserved kids. So I urge you to try to create the continuity and stability that's needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Gordon.
Good evening, Madam President, Superintendent Aguilar, members of the board. My name is Marisol Aviña, and I'm here as a community member to support this item and support the superintendent. Really, as many have pointed out, and you all have pointed out, the recent state audit points out at the lack of consistent leadership as a contributing factor to many of the issues that we're facing today. And as others have pointed out, it's going to take a long time to turn it around. And we have seen the superintendent and his leadership, his strong leadership and commitment to the community, which we are so very lucky to have. And really urge you all to support him, urge the community to also support him, because it's going to take all of us to really turn things around and to come up with solutions. And as we heard with the presenters from the previous panel, he is a solution seeker, a problem solver, and just really committed to our students. And so I'm here in strong support of this action, and really just continue to urge you all to stay together in support of the superintendent and in getting us through these very difficult fiscal times. Thank you.
Thank you, Marisol.
Good evening again, board, and anyone who is watching this meeting. I'm here to speak in favor of this motion. And as the chief academic officer said with her work, things need to be taken slowly. And how can something be taken slowly if you don't know if you have more than a year left to do your job? Even the President of the United States gets 4 years to prove his worth before he gets reelected. Now I'm going to speak brutally honestly, and that is that earlier I said, and I've said many times, I don't speak for my kids when I'm up here, but I realized sitting out there that I'm speaking for myself, and I'm speaking for someone who's like me. My husband, who's not my husband anymore, but his name is John. He grew up a migrant farm worker in Fresno. I essentially grew up in a migrant family. My father worked in San Francisco, and I lived in Madera. He was gone all week. John and I both went to UC Davis, and that's where we met. I have 3 degrees from Davis. And I just know that part of that is because we had equal opportunity in our schools. My parents would not have taken me to another school. They did nothing. I love them, but they did nothing. I earned everything on my own. John earned things because he had equal opportunities made for him. He served in the Marines to fund his way through college. And we're successful people. My kids are privileged, and here's where I'll be brutally honest. My kids went to Matsuyama, Sam Brannan, and Pace. And honestly, if those programs weren't there, I also might have taken them out of this school district. And that is the battle, one of the battles you will be fighting as a board. What people aren't saying is this is about equity. You're going to be, people who come here and can say that, I'm not talking about anyone who's here today. I did not intend to bring this up with the people that were in the room earlier today. I have nothing against McClatchy or the HIS program, but I've seen this from all around. People who have money and voice can come in here and get changes made like that. And you people are fighting for the people who can't. Thank you.
Thank you.
So board, I want to thank you for moving forward on this because stability is what we need to have a chance to improve labor relations and to improve our outcomes for students. One of the things I value about you, Superintendent Aguilar, is you keep telling us the truth about what's going on. You don't let us rest in our little bubble of my kids went to Caleb Greenwood, Sutter, West, now SES. I could just stay in my little bubble of thinking, hey, it works for me, it works for them. I've had my eyes opened that we have a lot of inequities. We have a lot of ground to cover, and none of this just happened yesterday or 2 years ago or 5 years ago or even 15 years ago. This is a system that has been running this way for a long time. But none of us who are in this room can say we don't know. So we don't have an excuse to not do better. And part of that I see is we need to make a commitment both to our values and to a structure that lets us move forward. And part of that is committing to our superintendent. This won't stop us from giving him feedback. This won't stop the board from giving him direction. You know, he's still going to work for what we need to work on, but he's bringing strong leaders like we saw today, give presentation today. I do serve as a volunteer on the LCAP committee, and Vincent Harris is helping us see the data and understand what the data represents. I very much value that. And I think this is so intimately tied to the need to improve equitable outcomes in our district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Williams Kingsley again, and I wasn't planning to speak on this topic, but I felt compelled to say that as Cecile and Allison were really saying, this is a matter of equity. And the superintendent actually got here a few weeks before we did.
We need to reset your clock. Sorry, Ann didn't
okay,
start.
It started over.
You did not.
It's
You
okay.
did not run out your time.
We moved from the Bay Area to Sacramento, I think probably about this, like our moving trucks were probably fighting for a parking spot. And I met the superintendent at my very first CAC meeting when I came to figure out what to do about my son and special education. And your speech was compelling, and I've been inspired to really get involved in a way I didn't plan to. And I think if there were not obstacles in your way, we would be in a really different place today. And I think nobody should fool themselves that there aren't obstacles in your way. And who else would we get who would willingly come here and do this really difficult work if he did not stay? And you can't ask someone to do this really difficult, challenging, reputation-killing work without committing to him and to the work that we're all trying to do as a community. And certainly there are people who feel like they woke up yesterday or they woke up last month and what in the heck is happening? Our banner high school is falling apart. You know what? Things have been falling apart for a long time, and anybody who read these reports along the way knew it. And that work has been, a lot of us have been trying to do that work for a long time, and we welcome more partners to do that work, but we need to commit to leadership and consistent leadership. And I, for one, do not want to see yet another superintendent. So I'm thankful that you're moving forward with this. And I want to say to those who say that he's failing because the labor partners are not happy, they weren't happy with anyone. They aren't happy no matter what we do. So we need to move forward as a community with the values that we hold, whether they're coming with us or not. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to reset the clock. Thank you, Kenya.
That's hard to follow. So I'm just going to say this. I'm actually going to be critical of the superintendent. I'm going to be critical of you. Okay, this is a district that has, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, 76% of our students are economically disadvantaged. So for me, who grew up economically disadvantaged, I can't see your salary as justifiable for me. You know, and I know that there are other parents that feel the same way. So this is the criticism that I have for you and I would like to see from you. And I think you're doing an excellent job. I hope you continue to do a great job. But I really encourage you to reach out to those parents who are on the ground, like Sarah, myself, Angie, Angel, Cecile, Frank, Allison, Renee. I'm calling them out because they're here, they're at these board meetings. And the parents who are not just at the board meetings, but who are looking online at these meetings who can't be here because they're home with their children with disabilities, or they're doing homework, or they can't be here because they're working at a second job. So I want you to keep that in mind and make yourself available to those parents. I volunteer. I spend, I don't know how many hours volunteering where I don't get paid. And one of the volunteerships that I do is for this district. So that is the reality for so many of our parents. So moving forward, please remember that you're working for us. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenya. Is this our last public comment? Okay.
Last one.
Can you please state your name?
My name's Edgar Avila, and I live here in the neighborhood. I read an article during the summer months about Sac City, and the article was about all these problems started 20 years ago. Mr. Aguilar, I think you were a teacher down in the LA district during that time. And, you know, for someone to come in here and expect a major turnaround within 3-4 years is just not possible. I really like the statement of Superintendent Gordon about what he said about consistency. And, you know, if we look at, from a sports analogy, let's look at, you know, like the New England Patriots, for example, who've been successful for 20 plus years because they've had one leader, they've had one quarterback who's led them through the bad and the good times. And that's exactly what we need. We need a superintendent like Mr. Aguilar, who's willing to fight those upstream battles. Someone who's not willing to fold under pressure, and who's willing to be here until midnight during these board meetings, just like everyone else. Those aren't fun, especially being away from the family. So, Mr. Aguilar, you have my 100% support for the next few years, and hope all is well. Thank you.
So with that, we'll take board member comments. Board Member Pritchett, followed by Board Member Garcia.
Thank you, President Ryan. And Ms. Kingsley, I'm not sure if Superintendent Jorge Aguilar knew what he was getting into when we hired him. Maybe he did, and he took it on. I'd just like to point out the importance of continuity and consistency of leadership in our district, and having that in, you know, with our current superintendent. Our superintendent possesses a leadership style that is outstanding and uplifting. I've served on the evaluation committee now for, I think, pretty much since your hiring, and his positive leadership has led to positive evaluations each time, with the whole board in agreement of it. It's breathtaking to see his work on the focus of increasing student achievement. So with that being said, I would like to move the approval of the addendum to the superintendent employee agreement to extend term.
Sorry, I stepped away to grab.
Here, I got you.
Thank you.
Member
Board Member, actually, it was Board Member Garcia, and then Board Member Morosky.
Thank you. So I did have a couple of questions. I just needed to understand how this works. And I understand that this is a recommendation by FCMAT and probably other audits that have been out over the years in terms of establishing a policy to have a system in place to be able to support whomever the superintendent is. If they get 2 evaluations that are positive, they would automatically get an extension. Is that correct? Or is it just for this superintendent? I just need to make the distinction between, is it just for this superintendent, or is it a policy that we're going to have in place that's going to be part of our system?
So my understanding is that the addendum to this contract is an evergreen clause, and Superintendent Gordon, you can probably speak to this, that is quite common for superintendents across the state. With a positive evaluation, you get a 1-year extension. Now, I think we can have a board conversation beyond tonight, outside of the action we're taking on this superintendent's contract, about a board policy that would live beyond the current superintendent.
Okay, and that policy is a common policy that you see, Superintendent Gordon. So I did have a follow-up question then. I thank you for the clarification. So does this come before the board at any point in time when, after another positive evaluation or 2 positive evaluations, does it come back to the board for discussion, whether it's in closed session or it's in open session? I'm just trying to figure out if this is automatic, if I'm just sort of saying, yes, this will happen automatically, or if at some point in time, do I still get to say something again?
We will still do annual evaluations. Board Member Wu is our longest-standing board member. The practice of the board and boards across the state are annual evaluations. So the annual evaluation that would next occur would require a positive annual evaluation to further extend the contract.
Okay, so how many more positive evaluations will be necessary in order to trigger this extension? 1 more?
1 per year, and that extends a year. Sorry.
So for every positive evaluation, there is a 1-year extension.
Right.
That is the evergreen clause.
But when is the second, when do we consider the second positive evaluation for the extension until 2023?
So this would be the extension for 2023 because there have been 2 consistent positive evaluations.
Oh, okay. I've only been around for 1 evaluation, so maybe that's why.
I understand.
I'm just trying to follow sort of the path and to see how this plays, how this works, and understanding that it's a common practice. And understanding that it's a common practice in many districts, and also that that consistent leadership is critical to student success. So I just needed to ask those clarifying questions to really understand what was before me and what I'm voting on. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Garcia. And I think that, frankly, it's helpful for the public who's watching and those in the audience. I know prior to doing research on best practices and speaking with other superintendents, including Superintendent Gordon, this was a concept that was not known to me. Member Morowski.
Thank you, and thank you, Member Garcia, for those clarifying questions as well. So I think on this item, you know, it's very easy for folks to get upset about things and to say, you know, this is like something we see in politics all the time, right? Like, vote the bums out, throw the bums out. You know, well, you throw the bums out, the problems are still the same. Because the people that come in after those bumps are still dealing with the same problems. And maybe it wasn't the bumps. Maybe that's just, you know, those circumstances that you're living in. So I agree that our kids deserve that stability and that continuity in leadership. That is the baseline for all of our future success. And I have asked many people who are frustrated, understandably, with the pace of change, for just to give us that benefit of the growth mindset. Because we have people in this district who are mired in decades-long mindsets because they have not gotten responsive leadership support from the central office. And so I have been asking that, and I will ask my community for that as well. Give us that benefit of the growth mindset, because there are a lot of things happening. There is so much taking place to improve this district on so many levels, many of which are not really able to be seen at this point because a lot of the work is foundational. So I just, with that, I just really support moving forward with this item tonight. And I just, again, wanted to commend the superintendent for, I think I am not the easiest board member. I am demanding. I demand a lot of transparency, accountability, and information. And I always know that I can ask for that, and I will get answers. And that is so critical. And so thank you.
Thank you very much, Board Member Morowski. Board Member Wu, did you have another comment?
Just to answer my colleague's question here, we have extended only one contract since I've been here, and that was the first one. Who was that?
I was not here.
Yeah. Huh? Jonathan Raymond. Thank you. And we have not extended contracts since then. So this is indeed an unusual situation for us.
Thank you, Board Member Wu. So I want to just close. I know we have a motion and a second, and actually this is not an item for a student preferential vote, though we so appreciate your voice on so many issues. I think it would be an understatement to not say that this is an extraordinarily difficult job. I think sometimes we forget in the rapid pace of the work and the incoming that we experience that Superintendent Aguilar is both a state and nationally known equity leader. I will tell you, not a week goes by that I don't hear from individuals like Dr. Elliott who are willing to, with myriad opportunities for them to give their expertise, come here because they believe in this leader. And I will tell you, as so many of our community members eloquently expressed, yes, it has been difficult. Change is difficult, in particular when you are exposing inequities and demanding that you address them head on. In extending this contract, this does not mean that we actually are fortunate enough to keep the superintendent. Frankly, there are several superintendencies open across the state. I happen to know, as many of my board members do, that Superintendent Aguilar is consistently and actively recruited. What this is a statement of confidence in his leadership and willingness to stay the course in the most dire of circumstances, because if he will not give up on our children, we will not give up on him. And so with that, I ask for a vote. We have a motion, a second. All those in favor of the contract extension? Aye. Those opposed? Abstain? The motion carries. Superintendent Aguilar, do you have anything you would like to say?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Board President Ryan. I just want to really express my gratitude for this vote of confidence from our board. Really, I don't see that vote that just took place as something about me, but rather as a shared commitment from this board and making the vote about our community. Community in Spanish comes from the word como unión, as a union. And I see this as a reflection of a level of confidence that this is not about the traditional relationship between superintendent and board, but rather about perhaps piercing through finally and creating a new paradigm in this city in which I'm not going to spend my limited capital energy trying to keep 4 board members to support me. and that other political forces are trying to gather 4 members to get rid of me. That is why I think this is about this community and not about one individual. It's also about community because this is my community. I live in the city of Sacramento. My children attend our schools. I was blessed to see my eldest daughter cross the graduation stage last year. My youngest will graduate in 7 years. So you add 3 plus 7, that's 10 years. And it's about community because we have to remain committed to the idea that we can become, as others have, a high poverty but high achieving school district. And the commonality of those districts is very different than what we've experienced in this city, which is this paradigm that superintendents strive to maintain a 4-member majority. And everyone else is trying to create a 4-member majority. And so I hope that, that this revisioning of not even thinking about a 7-0 board, but instead an 8-0 effective governance structure will continue for many years on end in Sac City Unified. My last post, as you know, was in Fresno, just a tad bit less progressive than Sacramento. And as a progressive community, we owe it to our students to lean in really, really hard and lift up the truth of the inequities and the injustices that the vast majority of our students are suffering from. And in that regard, I think that it is critical that we're reminded of that every day. And in some ways, what Kenya told me this evening, that we remind ourselves of the struggles of the vast majority of our families and our students in this community. And President Ryan mentioned it on Monday as we head to Father Keith B. Kinney, a school that lacks green space for our students, who in the hot summer days can only play on asphalt. And so this idea of equity, access, and social justice cuts across every aspect: facilities, instruction, selection, lottery, open enrollment criteria. And Member Morawski is right. We are having to live through the reality that we don't know how deep some of these inequities are in our system and how long they've lived in our system. And so I look forward to this continued partnership. I do want to express my gratitude to the board for their commitment to continue on their journey of effective governance. Because again, the commonality of the Long Beaches and the Garden Groves and the Elk Groves is this commitment to effective governance and to a structure in which neither of us, superintendent or board, are focused on trying to combat the usual forces of me spending my time trying to maintain a 4-member majority and others trying to create a 4-member majority. So with that, I want to thank each of you for your support and our community for their commitment to hold us accountable for staying the course as well.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Aguilar. I'm going to always think of our board governance structure as a communion now. I love this. Item 10.0, consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Second? Student preferential vote? All those in favor? The motion carries. Item 11.0, business and financial information. Receive reports. Do we have any public comments on item 11.1?
We have 2.
Okay.
one from Cecile Nunley, and one from Maria Rodriguez.
Well, this is back to my usual pace. So congratulations, Superintendent Aguilar, on your new contract. Of course, the attendance, and I always like to point out, and I'm looking at the attendance, so the average attendance for the elementary schools is 96%. However, you do have 5 of them that are, 2 that are just barely, or 3 that are just barely at 94, and some that are even in the 93 percentile range. And that's Father B. Kinney, John Sloat, John Still, Leotata Floyd, and Parkway Elementary. That again is showing, I mean, if they're already at 93%, and this is only at month 3, that's what this is showing. You got 10 months to go. It falls as it goes. On the middle schools, you have Wynn Elementary K-8, you have Kit Carson, and you have Rosa Parks. They're both at 94%, average is 96. And then of course, when you go to your high schools, you're looking at McClatchy's at 93.86, which is shocking. Hiram Johnson, 93.61. Luther Burbank, 93.58. So out of your 6 of your comprehensive high schools, 3 out of the 4 that are the largest are having problems already. Again, this is probably in part due to the suspension rates, because suspensions are counted in here if a kid's not in school at all. And then the other thing that you can think about is those office visits. How many more are kids missing days? And that's something that I think the board and the district still needs to focus on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I just want to say, first of all, for those who will miss the Martin Luther King March, and I was corrected, it's not a parade, it's a march. I will be there with the John F. Kennedy Band, which every year is invited to lead that march because of the connection between John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King. So I will have all of you there with me, whether you can be there or not. So actually, I'm not speaking for myself. I'm speaking for Jill Correll, who was in the room earlier, but her ride left. And she said if her ride left, I could speak for her. So I'm taking this opportunity. So when I said I love accounting and budgets, I didn't mean SCUSD's accounting and budgets. So she came to me and asked me about something on the financial report. I said, I'm not an expert on this budget, but she pointed out some very good questions. And I'm actually going to hand this to Ms. Morawski in particular because of your opinion, your focus on transparency. The PO report, the purchase order report that's in all of our packets is actually very, very telling. And Jill pointed out that on page 3 of 15, there's over $1 million of special ed fund. And I think it's special ed funds used for non-public agencies that I think is worthy of attention. She also pointed out on page 7 of 15, there's a $47,000 charge for gate assessment books that were needed ASAP, which if anyone, I don't know, she just did a quick search and Amazon sells those books for $20. Now, I'm sure it probably comes with some special services from Pearson Clinical, and it had to be ASAP, which increased the cost. But this is a person who just made my day. She looked at numbers and she found something, and it wasn't that hard. So I'm thankful, again, for the work you do and for the ability to come here and speak. It is a privilege that I know I'm afforded in this country, and I appreciate it.
We're looking forward to seeing that blanket too. Your blanket. All right, any other public comment? No. Okay, item 11.0, business and financial information and reports we have received. Item 12.0, future board meetings, dates and locations, February 6th at 4:30, closed session, and 6 o'clock open session. And February 20th, 2020, 4:30 closed session, and 6 o'clock p.m. open session. I can't remember what, adjourn? Oh, can I get a motion to adjourn? Can I get a second? Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, you're adjourned. I did. I haven't done that in a while.